Alrighty. Looks like we're up and running. I'm going to pause this, pop out my chat, just in case y'all want to talk. And I'm going to get cracking. So the first thing I'm going to do today is something I had scheduled, which is there was a question at work. I made a creature membrane brush, or I should say a subtool addendum that you can make using Marvelous Designer and ZBrush. So I'm going to go ahead and talk that one out, because I was like, I could do an internal video, but I could also stream it. That'll give me something to do while I'm at home, so while I'm streaming. So let's go ahead and do that. Obviously, let me know if my voice is not working or anything weird's going on. So I got my, speaking of weird things going on, looks like ZBrush is kaput. Let's go ahead and launch ZBrush one more time. Guess I had it up and running too long. I was doing revamping my CGMA class, and so I'm kind of talked out. I was doing some recording and had some weird stuff going on. So I'm gonna go to I'm gonna bring in this file here, ZBrush up. Okay. So we've got a centimeter scale guy I like to use, and he's basically like a Marvelous avatar version that I made, but he's centimeter compatible. And I'm going to go to Subtool, Append, and I'm just going to append a cylinder 3D. Now when you append something, of course, it's going to go ahead and make it a Polymesh 3D automatically. And now I'm going to size that down here, go into transparency mode, hide this here. And then I'm going to take my transposer, I should say, and I'm just going to transpose this thing out. So the reason I'm bringing in the centimeter scale guy is because this pole that I'm making is going to go into, hey, what's up? Thanks for stopping by. If you're just joining us, I'm going to be doing a creature thing real quick, kind of for work. I figured I'd stream the answer instead of just doing an internal video. But really quickly here, I'm just making a pole here. This guy's a centimeter scale, so I'm going to go ahead and do a quick Dynamesh on this thing. Let's go a little higher resolution here. And I'm just going to go ahead and smooth this out. And basically, this is just going to represent the bone of the membrane of the wing that we're going to be making. The scale guy I don't need to look at anymore. So here, we'll call this one bone. And then we hit W, Control Shift, drag out a copy of this thing. And I'm just going to rotate this thing like so. And one important thing to note, if I turn on my floor here, we have Z forward, Y is up and down, so the floor is down here, and that's going to be important because basically we're going to let Marvelous Designer, kind of let gravity affect it. There's ways around that. We'll talk about that while we're in Marvelous. But so we've got this thing here. Hit Control W just to make it all one polygroup, just in case. Go to Export, and I'll just throw this on my desktop as wing. Well, let's go ahead and make a folder because this might get a little bit messy. New folder, and we'll call this membrane. And in here, we're going to call this wing, let's say 135. And the reason I'm calling it that is because let's say this is about a 135-degree angle. So now let's do a 90-degree angle version of this. So what I'm going to do is do Control-Shift, select that, do Control-Shift-A, mask it, invert that mask, and then rotate this around so that it's about 90 degrees. And then I'm going to rotate it like so. I'm going to export this as wing 90. And then same thing again. Let's rotate this in a little bit more. And then we'll rotate this around. And we'll export this as wing 45. And we'll do one more. Rotate this. Oops. Rotate. There we go. Almost closed. And actually, we'll move this down a little bit too. There we go. And then we'll rotate this like so. And we'll call this wing 15. Now, do I know exactly what angles these are? No. They're just generally correct. And now that I have all those exported, I'm going to go into Marvelous Designer. Let's make sure you guys can see Marvelous Designer. This sometimes works, sometimes it doesn't. There it is. Yay. Not in front of me, though. There we go. And so now what I'm going to do, File, Import OBJ, and we're going to go find on our desktop that membrane folder. So first we're going to bring in wing 135. We're going to import that as an avatar in centimeters. There's my wing. In this 2D pattern view here, I'm going to take the 2D pattern tool and I'm going to make a wing here, like so. And in order to get this to curve a little bit more, I'm going to go hit Z or click this little component selector here, right click these little dots and do convert to curve point, like so. Oh man, I kind of like that look though. It's like futuristic. Let me fix that real quick. Properties. Nope. Filters. I don't know why it does that sometimes. It'll look perfect while I'm getting things going. Oh, you know what? Hold on just a second. Sorry about that. That was when I turned on another light. Okay, so now let's see. Similarity, green screen it out. Okay, a little better. Oh man, what a pain. I think because it's darker on the ZBrush one. That's good enough. Hey everybody, thanks for stopping by. This is going to be very simple Marvelous Designer action. We may get into more Marvelous Designer when we start getting into pants and shirts, but this is really just kind of a... It's weird. It's hard to explain. It'll be easier to show you. So I've got my cloth in here. I'm going to push this on back so it's just touching here. And we're going to go ahead and sim this cloth. But before we sim it, so it doesn't fall onto the ground, I'm going to go to this little pin to tack on avatar. And I'm going to click, well, let's undo that. I'm going to click on my cloth, then on my avatar. I'm just going to kind of stitch this right on there. So when it starts hanging, it'll be a little more controllable. Here to here, here to here, and here to here. One more, here to here. Okay, now that that's on there, I can hit space bar. It'll go ahead and spring clamp to that bone structure we have underneath there. I'm going to click on default fabric, go to the preset, and I'm going to change this to lightweight nylon to get some nice wrinkles going. And I'm also going to select the pattern here. You can hit A or just select this little transform pattern. And we'll drop this down to like 10. Now, I'm not going to go to like 5 or 3, which you definitely can do and should do if you're doing a really, really nice simulation here. I think this will be good enough. I'm just looking for general wrinkles here. So now that I have this, like I said before, the reason I have it hanging in space like this is if you right-click in your property windows here and go to simulation properties, you can control gravity here. So I just recently did a cape where I had to turn off gravity. I had the guy standing there, but I wanted it to look like it was blowing. So you can go in here and you can create a little wind simulator that's like a little arrow, and you can point the direction the wind's going in and it'll blow a cape. But if you have gravity turned on, it kind of hangs. So if you turn gravity to 0 or positive, it'll start floating like it's in space. So you can just use that, but we'll get to that kind of stuff later. But for now, we have this. I'm going to go ahead to File, Export OBJ. And in our membrane folder, I'll call this Wing 135 Sim. OBJ, everything is fine. Just go ahead and export that. And then I'm going to go to File, Import OBJ, and we're going to grab Wing 90. And we're going to load as a morph target. Hit OK. And it'll go ahead and sim that closed for me. Yeah, I know. I need to... Maybe I can't do green facial hair, but maybe bright red. Yeah, no, Marvelous Designer is great for like, I can't sculpt cloth for anything. I mean, I can, but it takes me forever, and then really it's just a matter of like getting really good reference of like somebody wearing jeans or me wearing jeans, taking all the pictures I can, and then just recreating in ZBrush. Doing it in Marvelous Designer takes me 10 minutes, and it ends up being way better than anything I could ever make. So anyway, we have this one coming down, and you know, my laptop isn't the greatest, so it takes a little bit to sim. But anyway, we've basically morphed this thing shut a little bit. So I can go to File, Export OBJ again, and we'll call this Wing 90 Sim. Okay. 2 more. File, Import OBJ, and we'll grab Wing 45 as a morph target. And we're basically just closing this wing slowly. And we're going to use this to kind of do some creature work eventually. So it's just like a creature kind of closing its wings, right? So we're going to go to File, Export, OBJ. And of course, you can play with the properties of the cloth and stitching and making the patterns correct to get exactly what you want. I'm just doing a really quick demo for work. So bear with me. And then one more, File, Import, OBJ. Wait, we exported that, right? 45 sim. And then we need to bring in wing 15. Sorry, when I start talking and thinking, I get lost. Okay, load as morph target. We'll let that sim. Yes. In fact, if you want, just after this, oh wait, you can't see menus. Yeah, I would have to make a source video, source capture for the Windows, so probably more trouble than it's worth. But basically, I'm just saving these as exporting these as OBJs into a folder and naming them. So when I go into ZBrush, you'll probably see them. So then I go to File, Export OBJ, and we'll call this Wing 15 Sim. Okay. Now we got that. I'm going to go ahead. I'll keep Marvelous Designer open, but I'll go ahead and click the Simulate button off or hit Spacebar so that it's not taking up my system resources. Then I'll go back into ZBrush. So while I'm in ZBrush here, I'm going to go to Import, and we're going to grab Wing 135 Sim and drag it out here. Oops. Yeah, I might need to... ZBrush acting a little bit weird here. Turn off floor, turn off polyframe. So here's my angle 135 simulation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my layers. I'm going to make a new layer, and with that active, I'm going to import Wing 90 Sim. I'm going to make a new layer, import Wing 45 Sim, make a new layer, import Wing 15 Sim. So now with all of these, what I basically have created is a kind of a creature wing thing. So I can actually, you know, let's go ahead and make a creature real quick. We've got a Z-sphere here, and we'll just use Q to kind of drag out kind of a, you know, maybe an arm nook, and then we'll put a little wrist on here, and then maybe this will be like a little hand or whatever. So basically, if I want to put a membrane between these two things, let's go ahead and hit A, make adaptive skin, and now we've got a skin Z-sphere in here, and we can do a little bit of sculpting on this. So we'll hit Shift, and we'll just kind of smooth out these transitions in here. We'll have big knobby joints, and we want to stretch a membrane in between here. So I can take my membrane wing here, and take my skin Z-sphere. We'll do a snapshot, so we'll hit Shift S, so I can take a snapshot of it. We'll go to our wing membrane maker, and oh, you know what? I probably did something stupid because this is probably going to be the right size. But let's go ahead and go to our layers, and if I want to start shrinking this, I can start collapsing this down and just get that angle perfectly. If it was smaller, all I would have to do is just continue to kind of sim down and then basically bake down to what I need. So if it's really close to his body, we can go all the way down with all three active. Or if it's not that close, you can pop this one up and then go between these two. And then you can take this one and go between these two here. So you know what? Let's go back to our skin Z-sphere here. Hit Control N to clear our canvas. And just to make it more interesting, I'm going to grab this here, Control click to blur it. Invert that, rotate, and we'll kind of change that angle in between these two here. So now I'll do Shift S for a snapshot. And how's everybody doing? Oh, shoot. Oh, man, I always forget to do that. ZBrush, Keyshot, and me. Juggling these damn things. Ugh. Okay, let's do this again. Okay, so we have we made a creature while you were blind. And all it is just basically Z-spheres, and we made like a little arm crook here. So he's got like a little hand here, and then a little elbow crook here. Sorry about that, guys. So now what we need to do is bring our wing membrane in so that where am I at? So as the arm extends and then contracts, you can kind of pick an angle and it'll kind of have a membrane that's simmed like a wing that we did in Marvelous. So how we do that, let's do this. Let's just delete this. It only takes a second. And we'll go to, you guys can see me, import. You don't see the window here, but I'm importing the Wing 135 sim. There we go. So this is all it is. And then I'm going to go to my layers, add a new layer, import, Wing 90 sim, add a new layer, import, Wing 45 sim, add a new layer, import, Wing 15 sim. So now that I have those imported as layers, what I can do is basically back all of these off, and I can dial in what angle I want these things at. So if I go from 135 inwards, I can keep shrinking that in and in until I get the angle I want. To find out the angle, we can go back to our Skin Z sphere here. So here's our angle here I want to match. So I'm going to hit Shift S to do a snapshot here. I'm going to switch back to our wing, and I can just dial back all of these things so that it's like, okay, here it is at, 135 all out. So I'm going to go here. Let's go ahead and scale it up a bit. And then I'm going to go, okay, it goes, shrinks in a little bit here, probably in this range. If you want to go a little bit more, you can start going down to the 15, but I think that'll kind of work somewhere in that range. So we'll go ahead and go back to our Skin Z sphere. We'll go to Subtool, Append, and we'll grab this wing. And if we alt tap that wing, all we got to do is just bake all of those layers down, and now we have our membrane here, like so. We can just position this in there. And we'll just move this out. I'll rotate this around. There we go. So now we've got a little wing membrane. Of course, if you have these bones on here, we'll make a quick version without these bones. Let's go ahead and grab a little piece of that, invert, little piece of this, oops, little piece of this, hold down Alt, invert, Control Shift A, invert that, delete hidden, and now you've got a little membrane that you can add thickness to, which we'll talk about. You can go in here with your Move brush, and actually let's rotate this. Like so. There you go. And then you can just do whatever you'd like with this. Yeah, so this is all triangulated. If you wanted to do a cleanup version, it's pretty easy to do. So what I like to do is we've got our little membrane here. I'm going to duplicate this off and then just really quickly go to ZRemesher, which for you guys will be under here, Geometry, ZRemesher. How many are we? We're at 9,000. Let's do half, adapt the size down to 0 so we have nice even quads. Excuse me. And we'll just ZRemesh this thing. If you want less, just keep hitting half, and it'll go down and down and down. Another thing you can do is go over here to Z Plugin, and we'll do UV Master, and we'll turn off symmetry, and we'll just unwrap this thing and flatten it. So there's the UVs, and you can flatten it. You can move these things around if you want to. So we'll unflatten this. So now it has UVs. And now what we can do is, I might destroy the UVs actually. Let's do Q Mesh, and then you can, all you would need to do in this case, if you're just doing a single-sided mesh, is go out of solo mode. Well, you don't have to. Have the other object visible, and then go to project all, divide it up, project all, divide it up, project all. And then you'll have UV'd cloth that you can go in and clean up. However, if you do want thickness, which I usually do, oops, let's go back one. There we go. Go out of solo mode here. What I'll tend to do is I'll hit a face. I'll go extrude all polygons, and I'll give it some thickness, like so. And then I'll just isolate this top one, do a project all, bring everything back. Let's do a quick crease by polygroup, which is under your crease menu. Subdivide, isolate, project all, bring it back, subdivide, isolate, project all. And the reason I'm isolating is because I don't want to project these back faces. I just want to project these front faces. And oof, Well, actually, you know what? Maybe I forgot to look. No, it should be, oh, it's double. That's why. Okay. When you see something like that, make sure when you pull out your thickness that you turn off double and you flip. Double will get you. So now we'll go back to crease polygroup, and then we'll isolate, project all, Control D, isolate, project all, Control D, isolate, project all. So you can have UVs, you can project your detail back, you're not really going to miss anything. And so now you've got your solo mode. Here's the original, here's the Z-remeshed with the nice geometry with the UVs. And I mentioned when I was in Marvelous, I didn't like sim it down to like level 5. I just simmed it down to like level 10, or a particle distance of 10, I should say. You can go all the way down to 1 if you want really high resolution mesh, but this is fine for what I need. Thank you, Thunder Bunny. I'm glad you showed up, and my streams are worthwhile. You can do the wind part in Maya. You can use Maya and cloth. It has a couple of oh, the wing thing, yeah, and the wind thing if you want to. It has cloth simulations in there. Marvelous is faster and easier for me. Encloth is kind of, I can do simple things in Encloth, like make a plane and then put it over a sphere and then watch it sim. In Maya and Marvelous Designer, we can do tons of other stuff, which I'll show you actually as we continue. If you guys are interested, we can do a little bit more Marvelous work. But anyway, just to reiterate, we now have a creature membrane tool here that we can, and again, if you didn't want these things attached, all you would have to do, like these bones with the tool, all you would have to do is, and this will probably be a good refresher too. So you know what, we'll go here and temporarily we'll grab this piece, invert this piece, invert, Control Shift A, invert that. We don't even have to delete. All we got to do is export. We'll go wing 135 simple. Hold on. And then we'll go, now when I drop this layer down one, it's probably going to pop these things back. Yeah, so I'm going to grab this one, Control Shift A, invert that. We'll export that as wing 90 simple. Two more. We'll grab this one, wing 45 simple. One more. Oh wait, get rid of these. There we go. Wing 45 simple. And then last one, export this one. As wing 15. Simple. And then just to kind of re-go back over the entire process, we can go here, simple brush, import, wing 135 simp. Now this one doesn't have the sticks, so we're going to go to layers, make a new layer, import, wing 90 simp, no sticks, import, wing 45 simp, no sticks, new layer, import, wing 15 simp, no sticks. So now we have a no sticks version that we can go through, and now you can just kind of dial in where you want your wings to go. And like I said before, go into Marvelous, play with the fabric settings, and make a good wing. This was kind of a rushed wing. You can see the pinning over here was kind of nasty. Didn't do a great job, but you get the idea. So we've got this wing, we've got that, we've got the creature wing. If you guys are new to Marvelous Designer, let's grab our guy we've been working on. We'll make a really quick pair of jeans for him. And I'm not going to go too into depth because I don't think he's quite ready yet, but just to kind of give you guys a quick overview, maybe pique your interest, we'll hop back in, and I will remember to change programs as I do that. We'll try that. Male 08. So here we've got our male we've been working on. If I take him, and we're just going to solo mode here, we've got his body here, and we just want to give this guy a pair of pants. Now he already does kind of have a pair of blocked in pants. If I alt tap those, you're going to see we have this and then this. So I kind of just sculpted these pants just to kind of get the basic overall shape. You know what we could do? I could show you guys maybe a little trick that might be worthwhile. Let's go ahead and duplicate these pants off. And before we go into Marvelous Designer, I'm going to make a pattern. Now you can make your own pants pattern, and it's pretty easy to do. We'll do both. But just because it might be interesting, let's go ahead and mask some pants out. So I'm going to mask this top part here, and I basically just want to mask everywhere where there's not a cap. And actually, do I have? No, I don't. So we'll go ahead and just Control-Alt-Tap to sharpen that up. And we'll grab Mask Lasso. And we'll just go ahead and a little bit more. All right, so we got the pants on there. Hit Control-W to make a polygroup. Isolate that polygroup, and then we'll go ahead and run my macro for polishing those border edges here. Actually, we'll just do it manually. So underneath masking, turn off everything but border, Control-Tap to invert that. So just the borders are unmasked. Deformation, polish by features, open circle. And that way, ZBrush won't get caught up there. We will end up cinching these in, but I don't really need those right now. So I'm just going to kind of simplify his pants a bit. And we'll just do a quick mirror and weld as well. Oops. We'll go delete, hidden, mirror and weld. So now we just have simplified pants, and then I'm going to take it into ZRemesher here. And we'll do adaptive size of 0. We'll do, it's 77 now, target polygon count of 5 is fine. And thank you, Stuffed Krusty. And we'll see how this goes. Okay, so as it's simplifying here, I'm going to go ahead and smooth this out. And then ZRemesher half. And just keep hitting that until we get just a representative shape of these pants. So now what I'm going to do is under UV Master, I'm going to go to Work on Clone. And I'm basically going to attract, I'm going to do, we'll turn on Symmetry, we'll enable Control Painting, and I want to attract seams on this side here, where seams usually show up on pants. So you can kind of paint where you want seams to end up. And then I want to attract a seam inside here as well, where it'll usually show up. And then we'll hit Unwrap and Flatten. And let's unflatten here. Enable Control Painting, attract here and here. It should cut, and it should cut here. Okay, you know what? If we're going to force it, let's do it this way. I'm going to do Control-Shift. That'll click all the way down, and then I'll do Control-Shift. That'll click all the way down. I'm going to do a quick Auto Groups. So you can also use polygroups to dictate exactly where you want your seams to be. And then I'm going to take this polygroup here, do Control-Shift-X to extend, just to grab that extra ring, Control-W, and now we've got blue and red. So now I can go Symmetry, Polygroups, don't enable Control Painting, Unwrap, Flatten, and there's my UV. So now I can actually use these as a pattern in Marvelous Designer. The best, I have Green Shot, so I can do Function, Print Screen. On my laptop it's Function, and I can just kind of steal a screenshot from here. You guys can't see that because I don't have a window capturing that, but you can just do Print Screen and just save this somewhere. I'll save it on my desktop here, and we'll call this Pants Pattern. Now everything I'm doing, you don't have to do it all, but it might prove useful, maybe. So now we're going to go back into Marvelous Designer, make a quick pair of pants. And again, these aren't going to be the final pants, but just to kind of show you guys. Actually, if you go back to our workshop 1, we did a little tank top that you guys can go and check out if you're so inclined. To get this guy into Marvelous Designer, what we're going to have to do is decimate him down, because 731,000 is way too expensive to bring into Marvelous as an avatar. I mean, you can, but there's no point. So Decimation Master, Preprocess Current. Hello? Let's see. I'm going to make sure. If I miss your question, it's not on purpose. Sometimes I get lost kind of going back and forth, so just holler it back at me, and I'll try and keep my eyeballs open. Okay, so we pre-processed this thing here. Let's get them down to like 88,000 maybe. We'll decimate that. You'll see we didn't lose any detail, but now we can kind of see how he was reduced. Oops, looks like I left some dimples on his butt. That's okay. So with this, in fact, you don't even have to export all of this. If you're just going to do pants, you can just grab this part of his body and call it a day. We'll take all of them in there. We'll export this as PavWork male. We'll call this pants avatar. We'll hop back into Marvelous. We'll do a file new. We don't need to save this. And oh, let me switch. There we go. I'm going to go to avatar, delete all avatars because we don't need those sticks anymore. File, import OBJ. Let's go to our streaming PavWork male. High res pants avatar. Centimeter scale is what I'm working at. There we go. If you want to change his color, just double click him and we'll drop his diffuse color into a more human range maybe. There we go. So now we need to make him a pair of pants. Now I'm not going to bring in his pattern just yet. We can just kind of do it on the fly here. So I'm going to go into my pattern tool and we're just going to do the front pair of pants and the back pair of pants. So in order to get the front pair of pants, we're going to drag out one leg and we're going to go ahead and take this and we're going to clone as a symmetric pattern, and these will be the front pair of his pants here. And we need to modify these a little bit. So actually, just to make sure I'm not going to waste time here, I'm going to look up a jeans pattern online just to get the general overall shape that I'm looking for. There we go, front and back. Looks about right. Okay, so basically all it is, you can go in here and you can hit X to cut in points here. And we're going to be dropping in a point here, and when I do it, it's symmetrical. So we're going to drop in those points here, and we're going to hit Z, and we're just going to move these things in. And if you want to make these things curved, again, just like on the wing, right click, convert to curve point, and then we can just move this back here. And you can also go into curve editing mode, and you can move these curves in. So these are the front pants. Now I can take this shape here, and we'll go ahead and clone. You know what, we'll just copy and paste this one. Copy, paste over here. And then we're going to right click this one and we're going to do this one as a symmetric clone as well. And these will be the back. Now on the back, it looks like the seat is, well, we'll see how this plays out. So I'm going to go ahead and move these things into place here. Let's go to settings, preferences, gizmo, world coordinates, fine. And we'll just move these back around here. So these are going to be the back of his pants here, and I'm going to right click these and we're going to do flip horizontal. So jeans front and back, hold on. Okay, so the front will be like that and the back one will be a little bit more shallow, but it'll have a little bit more fabric. So in the back, it ends up looking, you need a little bit more fabric this way, and we can actually go ahead and put in a split line here. And this is all stuff that we can change as we go. I'm going to right click this, convert the curve point after we get it sewn on there. So let's go ahead and do that now. And again, I'm not going to be doing tons of pockets or any of those kind of details. This is just purely just to get some real quick cloth on there. So before we sim it on him, we need to go ahead and sew it up. So I'm going to go into the sewing tool and I'm going to sew. In order to kind of look at what we need to sew, I'm going to do a segment sew from here to here. So we're going to go here to here. And then we're going to go from the inside of this leg to the inside of that leg. So here to here. And then we're going to have to go from here to sew up the front. And then on the back, we'll go here to sew up the back. And so now we've got the leg sewn on and there's no crisscrossed area, so I think we're safe. And I'm just going to raise these up a little bit because as it sims, it's going to kind of fall down his body. And there's ways you can change the friction coefficient on your avatar and your cloth to mitigate some of that. But for now, I think that'll be fine. So I'm going to hit spacebar to sim this thing. Now we got a sweet pair of pants. And then if we want to change the fabric, which we probably do, we can go here to the default fabric and we can say physical property. Do we want it to be leather? And that'll kind of give it a leather property. You're going to see there's not a whole lot of detail, and that's just for speed while you're kind of pulling these things around. Or if you want to go in here and kind of make the legs longer so you get things kind of bunched up, you know, it doesn't sit there and take forever. So your particle distance is pretty low. But once that's on there here, so we can do, we got this. Let's change the default fabric to something like, we can just do denim. That's fine. So it's set to denim, and if we want to raise the particle distance to, again, to get more detail on these pants, we can just select all these patterns here, and we'll do change the particle distance from 20 down to like 10, and it's just still pretty high, but you're going to see when I do that, you're getting a lot nicer wrinkles in here. And you can use this as just straight up cloth, like go in and now you have pants, or you can use it as reference if you want to do like very specific kind of pants wrinkling. And you can see it gets you just really nice realistic results. Now he's getting a little tight up here, so we probably need to add a little bit of cloth here so you can kind of tap where these tight points are. In fact, you can actually go in here and change this fabric to like a stress here, so you can see it's pretty loose down here but really tight up in here. So we'll go back to single-sided thickness here, and let's see if we can loosen some of this up a little bit. So here I'm going to pull these tops out, and it looks like on jeans, if you want to taper these legs in, what you can do is take this curve and then just kind of, you can still keep the waist wide, but you can kind of start tapering these legs in if you want a little more of a slim fit type thing going on here. And then you can hit sim, and that'll just kind of bring those legs in a bit, and now you can start seeing a little bit more of his muscle definition. And my computer is a laptop, and it's not super fast as far as CPU is getting a little long in the tooth, so depending on what how many things you have running, I'm also streaming at the same time, so that might be part of it here. So yeah, this is really, really easy to do. Things like, we'll do this, we'll do like a blanket, a pillow, or whatever. So anyway, if you want pants like this, you're good to go. And again, you can just change this. You can export this as like denim, and then you can go, you know what would the fabric look like if he was wearing like wind pants? So we'll go back to a lightweight nylon like we had for the wings. And you can kind of pull this out. And again, if you want a lot of detail, what you're going to need to do is go into your particle distance and drop that down to like 5. You know what? I don't like it. Let's really balloon these things out. Let's have a little fun. So I'm going to take this. We're going to give them some bell bottoms. Oops. Go here, and then here. Get him up off his calves here. Now, if it is having a hard time simming, you can just raise that particle distance back up to like 20, let it sim in. It'll do a quick job. It'll just kind of find out what it's doing here. And let's go ahead and take these bottoms down too. Even more cloth. You just kind of pull it up and around. No problem. Now you got all sorts of interesting stuff going on. If you wanted to cinch these pants, let's go ahead and straighten these out just a bit here. Like if he's wearing knee pads or something, all it would be is, if we'll, you know what, let's take these and we'll raise the particle distance down just to like 15, so it's a little bit nicer. And again, he has that kind of lightweight nylon fabric, so it's going to be super duper wrinkly. But you can go in here with your chalk. There's a little chalk thing you can go in here and draw if you want to like draw in where your stuff is. You can import avatars and use morph targets just like when we were doing the wings, where the wings were moving and the cloth was coming along with it. And you can actually model your avatar with the knee pads off and then morph the knee pads on. But really, it's probably just as easy to go in here and go, you know what? There's going to be a knee pad strap here on both sides. So I'm just going to kind of draw where that is. And you're going to see as I'm drawing this line, it's making a chalk line over here. So I can go, okay, that's where my internal shape needs to be. I'm going to go to my internal lines here. I'm going to click here, here, here twice, and then here, here, here twice. I'll go ahead and hit Z or click up there, and I'll right click these, and we'll change these to a curve point just to make them a little more curved. And we'll go ahead and get rid of those chalk lines here. So we'll go back to the chalk, edit chalk, and we'll just delete. So we don't need our chalk lines anymore. And you don't have to use chalk lines. You can actually go in there and just make your internal lines, but it's kind of useful to kind of, and you can see here on this internal line, this one's a little bit off. So we're going to click here and say, okay, this one needs to come down just a bit, a little bit more. All right, now they meet up. So now all you need to do is say, okay, pants. You know what? That nylon's bugging me. I'm going to take this default fabric. We'll go back to our denim here. And now we just need to select these things here, and we're going to go to turn elastic on. And we're going to crank our ratio down and our strength up, and that'll sort of cinch those in. So now it's like got some elastic on there, and you can put this anywhere. That's just one way to do kind of like bunched areas here. Yeah, as long as your vert order doesn't change. The morph that I did with the bones was just nasty Dynamesh. You could decimate it down, but you can't change the vert order. So it can be a nasty decimated mesh, but you just can't change. You can only move stuff around. You can't like re-Dynamesh it or change anything about the vertex count, or else it won't be able to be used as a morph target. Okay, so we got some sweet stripper pants. I don't know what these are, but we'll go ahead and call these pants. So I'm going to go ahead and let's drop these down just a little bit more so we can have a little bit more detail in there. I'm going to drop these down to a particle distance of 10. And we'll sim these. And again, 10 isn't very low at all, but just because we're just kind of playing around, there's no point in sitting here waiting for it to really sim something nice. File, export OBJ, and we'll call this pants test. Okay, weld. Yeah, I'll go ahead and weld. I'm going to turn off the sim, or just pause it, and then I'm going to remember to bring ZBrush back up. And now we're going to go to import pants test. So now I'm going to, let's go back to matcap gray. Easiest way just to get rid of the body, you can just select part of the body, Control-Shift-A, invert that selection by control dragging, delete hidden, and now you just got pants. So now with this guy here, we can go to insert our sweet pants here. And now you can see we have our original pants here, and then we got our weirdo pants. Oh, there's our ZBrush pants. We don't need that anymore. And now we've got our kind of weird pants here. So just like when we were doing the wings, if you want to, you can ZBrush these and then start smoothing, and then you'll have subdivision, so you can go down here and have detail to like put in memory wrinkles or puckering, tiling puckering. I'm not going to do that tonight. Because when I start doing really detailed stuff, I want to make sure that I have a decent pair of pants, not some funny pants that we just made. But you can get by without being able to draw at all as a 3D artist. In fact, I know some really famous 3D artists who have horrible drawing skills. Of course, I'm not going to name names, but they're top of their game, and they can't draw for anything. But it certainly doesn't hurt, and really it's just another way to ideate. In fact, tonight, how are we doing on time? Tonight what I'm going to do is some 2D concepting, just because I don't do it a lot, but it's fun, and it's also a way to kind of break you out of your rhythms and force you into just designing and thinking about things in a different way. So ideally, do both if you can. I mean, pick and choose your battles. If you want to get a job as a 3D artist, be really good at 3D. And really, even when you get portfolios, I don't hardly ever see any traditional 2D artwork. And if I do, it's always like, here's a gesture drawing I did in an anime class. And some art directors may really value that. I personally am not an art director, but I don't. As horrible as that sounds, and maybe I shouldn't say that, but if you were a good artist with Vine charcoal, but your 3D art sucks, I'm not going to hire you as a 3D artist. You know, and vice versa. You know, I mean, if your 3D art is awesome, but I'm hiring 2D artists to paint my portrait, I'm probably not going to hire you to paint my portrait. You know, it kind of goes both ways. But if you want to be marketable, it can't hurt to know both, probably. But and it's also easier said than done. So that's why I said, you know, pick and choose your battles here. So yeah, we got these pants here. Let's just really quickly, just because it's fun to do, let's go ahead and I'm going to shoot this to the top. I'm going to duplicate this off. Let's clean these up just a little bit. It's kind of bugging me. And I'm going to do a Z-remesh on this thing. So we're going to go to geometry. We'll do a Z-remesh. Target polygon count of 5 is fine. Adaptive size down to 0. Actually, you know what? I'm going to crank that adaptive size up a little bit. I'm also going to turn off X because it's not symmetrical. We'll do adaptive size of like 15. So what the adaptive size does is take into account surface changes and actually puts more edges where they are needed. So that'll capture these wrinkles a little bit better here. Did I have X turned on? Because it looks really symmetrical. I guess they are pretty symmetrical. Now before I start, I'm going to go ahead. I'm not going to do thickness, but I am going to do a closed convex hole and just kind of cap these tops here and these bottoms if I can. There we go. I'm going to isolate these, Control W, and I'm also going to do a quick crease polygroup, which we did earlier. Just keep the, actually, did we do that earlier? Like I said, I was recording for my CGMA. I'm revamping my CG Master Academy course, and so my voice is gone, my brain is gone. I don't even know what I'm doing right now, but we're just doing some cloth. Okay, so we have this, and we have our original high res here. So I'm going to make sure those are the only two things showing. I'm going to isolate just this polygroup here. We're going to do a quick project all, subtool project all, divide, isolate, project all, divide, isolate. Now the reason I'm isolating is I don't want to project anything that shouldn't be. So I'm just kind of taking the surface that I want to project, projecting all, and then bringing everything back, subdividing. And now if I go into solo mode here, we can go, here's the original. Here's the one that's Z-remeshed. And again, we could have given it UVs and all that good stuff. I forgot, but we could have done that too. And now you can go in here, and now you have subdivision history. So let's turn that down just a tad. So you can go through here, and you can start smoothing. We'll do one side. And you can go in there in detail. And now that you have wrinkles, it's actually a lot easier. You basically have primary and secondary forms on your wrinkles here, so it's a lot easier to go in there and kind of put in your own kind of wrinkle forms. And you could also just run a smooth deformation on this. I'm just kind of going through real quickly and just kind of softening. So, and you also won't get a lot of this faceting if you do lower your particle distance from, say, what I had it at was 10 down to like 5 or 3 or 1. You'll be in good shape. Man, these pants crack me up. So now, even just with our standard brush, with our lazy radius on, lazy mouse on, you can just kind of go in here and kind of, oops, let's turn on Z-add, that would help. You can kind of supplement some of these wrinkles here. I might need to reset my brushes, they're kind of acting weird. You can also go in here with like the Damien standard, and I think we even did a test brush. I'll see if I can find it, where we can do a little bit of puckering. So like we can cut down the side here and start putting in seams, and you can sew it up. And let me just take a quick look. We'll go into brushes. And I guess I can just recreate it really quickly. Let's see if we have stitch. No, it would be under clothing. Leather stitch, wrinkles, no. Okay, you know what? I guess we can just do it real quick. We'll take a Cube 3D, Polymesh, make Polymesh 3D, shrink that down, shrink it down this way, and I'm just going to do a quick Dynamesh, and I'm just going to sculpt in what I would call Marvelous actually has these normal maps already. They're called gene puckers, but we'll just make a quick rolling brush that kind of will make a seam pucker here. And we'll pump up one end here with our standard brush. Yeah, my brushes are acting weird. Let's see. When your brushes are acting weird, go to brush, reset all brushes, crank that up. There we go. So now if I want to capture this, I'm going to drop it on the canvas. I'm going to go in a simple brush here, and we're going to do, what are we going to do? We're going to do mRGB Z grabber. There it is. Now I can start dragging this out, and you can hold down Alt to kind of reposition. And we're just going to capture just the height information of this puckering here. Like so. I'll go ahead and get rid of the texture here because it captures both. And now we have a little height thing we can tile. So we'll go back to our pants. And we'll go back to the side here. We'll hit Control D one more time just to make sure we have enough resolution. I am actually going to go into my brushes and we're going to steal the roll value, which we don't have to do, but just another technique you can do. We'll go to Stitch. We'll grab Stitch 1, and the Stitch 1 drags this out. So if you're going for like a pair of old lederhosen farm pants from ancient German history, you can certainly use that. What we're going to do is swap this alpha out, and now it'll roll that puckering, and we can also change the intensity a bit. So now we can kind of get Gene puckering down the side, and you can kind of smooth that out and go in there with your Damien standard. And obviously I did that in 3 seconds, so probably it's not the world's best Gene puckering, but it's kind of something you can do. What does Control D do? Oh, Control D does subdivide. Sorry about that. That's the hotkey for subdividing a mesh. So you can do that. Did I miss anything? No problem, no problem. Thanks for showing up. I'm happy when people bother showing up. Hopefully it's worthwhile. So yeah, we did a cool, quick pair of pants that did way better wrinkling than I ever would have. One thing we didn't talk about was using these patterns within Marvelous Designer. Let me see if I can do something real quick. Shoot this up here. What I like to do, I'm going to do a, you guys ever use Quadro? Go Google this. Actually, this has been a lifesaver daily my entire professional career. Well, it's pretty new, but relatively speaking, is Quadro Reference Viewer. There it is. So this thing right here was written by my friend Louise. And, you know, I can brag a little bit. It was at my request, but I basically asked him to make a reference viewer that I can have individual windows that I can set up on multiple monitors. So like I have 4 monitors at work. I can set up a bunch of different reference, and you can just watch the video. It explains it better. Awesome. And man, this thing's been a lifesaver. So I'm going to launch that real quick. And I'm going to use that in Marvelous Designer. There's another way to just bring in images in the Marvelous Designer and use them as patterns, but Quadro's faster and easier. So let me just do this real quick. Let me close this preset. I'm going to add a local image, and I will pull a window up for Quadro so you can see what I'm doing, hopefully. We'll see how it does. So pants pattern. So there's my pants pattern here, and you guys can't see it, so I'll make a new window capture, Quadro. Is it going to show you guys? Ah, it's not. Dang it. Yeah, I might have to play with OBS a little bit. It doesn't want to cooperate. Basically, if you watch the Quadro videos, let me go ahead and kill this. Actually, should that be filter properties? Quadro null. Anyway, watch the videos. I'm going to go ahead and kill this. But basically what you can do, remove. What you can do is You can load up a bunch of images. You can save them off. If you're working on helmets, you can load up a bunch of helmet reference. And then you're like, oh, I have to work on gloves. You can load up a bunch of glove reference. You can save those as presets. And then every time you go to open a preset, it'll populate all of your windows with the reference images right where you had them. You can flip images. You can rotate images. You can even do transparency on images. So that's what I end up doing in Marvelous Designer, is just taking a transparent image of Quadro over the pattern view in here, and then just drawing out the pattern to match the UVs. So if it's anything really specific, like I did a pair of gloves that had really specific cuts in it, I went ahead and just Z-remeshed it and got the borders and UV'd it so that it was flat. And it's not going to work perfectly, but it at least gets your cuts in the right areas and the right amount of fabric in the right places, instead of having to make a glove fit and then draw chalk or go in with internal lines and slice it. It was a nightmare. So that's one option here. You know what? They kind of remind me of that Mortal Kombat character who has, he was the Native American guy. I forget his name. But yeah, they're kind of, they're a little YMCA, but yeah, you're right. They're kind of are growing on me. Well, I'll hop back into ZBrush here. So we'll go up. There we go. Okay, so we finished pants. We finished our wing here. We talked about Marvelous Designer. Any questions before I move into Photoshop you guys want me to touch on? On the Pixelogic channel, we did a bunch of stuff. So if you haven't checked that out, go to, let me pull that up real quick just so you guys have access to it. Go to Pixelogic YouTube, and they have a playlist where they just updated my latest. Oh no, did they delete me? Where am I at? So I have Pavlovich Workshop, there we go. So in here, Broadcast 4 and 5 is pretty new. We did a bunch of stuff in there. So, and I can always go over some of that stuff too. Speaking of drawing things and going into Photoshop, let's talk a little bit about rendering if you want to do like maybe a stylized render real quick. So I'm going to load up the character I'm working on for their stream, which is streaming, ZBrush female, high res. I'll bring her in. And I am actually going to maybe even do this for reals because I need to do some cleanup work on her. She's getting a little busy. So I'm going to get rid of these hands here. Don't need to see those. Get rid of these legs. So we're going to do a little bit of like just 2D concepting just to kind of get some ideas out. I'm just going to remove some of this stuff. So she's got some boots, she's got some chest armor, she's got a helmet on here, and we're going to kind of play with her a little bit. So we got perspective turned on. If you want to render out a larger, how's that? If you want to render out a larger image, right now your document size is the pixel dimensions of what you're going to capture. So it's not going to be super high res. It's 1300 by 975. If you want to make it bigger, what you can do is you can change this to like, you can turn off proportional. You can do like 1024 tab 1024 and then hit resize. We'll do, you know what, we'll do 2048 by 2048. And then we'll hit resize, yes, and it'll kind of skew your image. Control N to clear it. Drag her back out. Now before you think, okay, here she is on the frame, and now I'm just going to go to texture, grab dock to grab the pixels. Make sure you go here to zoom and zoom out, because all of those extra pixels are way outside of your field of view here. So you probably don't want to sculpt with a giant document, because that's a lot of memory going towards nothing that you're actually using. But if you're capturing images here, go ahead and make your document size big enough to get you a nice render. So we can take this, we can do a BPR render. Just for preview purposes, if I'm just drawing over something, I don't need SPIX cranked way up, so I'll drop that down to 0. And we'll go to render, make sure, sometimes I have my external render as Keyshot turned on. We'll go into Keyshot 2 in just a second. So we'll hit BPR. That'll render out some shadows, and if, you know, under render properties we have shadows turned on, so it gave us some shadows here. Go to texture, well, a couple different ways. You can go to texture, grab dock, or you can go to render pass, and you can just click the shaded button, and you can actually throw out your depth and your shadow maps and your mask, but we're just going to do a paint over, so I'm not going to worry about all that. The other thing we can do is do kind of a pen and ink render. So I'm going to go here to our basic material, just underneath our standard materials here. And we did a little bit of this on the other channel, but I think you guys will like it too. If I go over here to material, modifiers, we have a diffuse and a specular that we're going to play with. Let me zoom in just a little bit here so you can see a little bit better. And I'll zoom in on her just a bit because we're going to talk about spec and stuff like that. So our diffuse just tells how much diffuse is going to show up. You can crank that up to 100 if you want. Our specular, if we turn it up, it gets shiny. If we turn it down, it gets matte. To control the fall off of the shininess, you can open the specular curve, and if you grab this thing and drop it down, it gets really wet. And if you pull that up, it gets really broad. So you can kind of change what type of specular you have here. If you want to get fancy, you can also go down here to, you can switch between a Fong and a blend, but we'll just leave it alone for now. Sorry, I keep touching my mic. You can do the same thing for the diffuse curve. Now, okay, so this little thing here, just a little bit of ZBrush knowledge. If you take this and you pull this ring in, that will actually change the fall off, or it should. Doesn't seem to be doing much now. The idea is it would tighten up that corner. It doesn't seem to be doing it. Now, if you want to make it really tight, you can pull this off and then pull it back on, and then it'll be a tight corner. Or you can just pull it off and let go, and then it'll just delete it. And then just click again, it'll make a new dot, and then you can just go in here and make all the dots you want. So, ZBrush basics. So we'll go ahead and tighten up that spec a little bit. We're going to go back into our diffuse curve, and if we want to get kind of a Sin City pen and ink look, what you want to do is crank up the strength here. And as we crank up that strength, it's going to start really defining the dark and light areas of your diffuse map. Now, if you want to posterize that or give it more steps in between on and off, you can take your steps and you can kind of start posterizing a little bit here. And that'll just give you more values in between black and white. And we're going to knock that strength back just a tad here, so it's not so obvious. Now, the thing with this is, so now you can see it's starting to get posterized. We have it, let's go back to steps 1 and then crank the strength up. So we have a really crispy diffuse, but our spec is still kind of fall off plasticky looking. You can do the exact same thing to your specular curve, crank that strength up. Now it's on or off, and then you can change your steps to kind of start posterizing this out. So, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 steps from light to not anything. So you can kind of change that. As well as you can also, while you're here, you can go ahead and change your specular fall off just by clicking and grabbing those. You can do your specular amount, so you can turn it all the way off if you want to, if you don't like it, or you can kind of dial it in just a bit. Same thing with your diffuse, same thing with your diffuse curve, you can still play with that. And now you can get kind of this render. Your light is also very important. We'll grab the light menu. And we'll go ahead and pull that around. Now, so you can do like a high noon, or you can light from one side and then you can open up another light and you can do a fill light. Let's go ahead and make it a different color here. We'll make it a cool color on that side, and we can take this light and make it a little warmer maybe. And it's all real time. You can add as many lights as you want to. And the power of doing it in the material is you can assign different basic materials, or even if you want to get fancy and start layering your materials, you can add like double shader and tri shader and quad shader. You can layer 1, 2, 3, and 4. You see where it says S1, S2, S3, and S4. Those shaders will allow you to kind of blend multiple layers together. So you can kind of use that to your advantage here. As well as you can also do render. We have shadows turned on. So go into your shadow properties here. And you can change like the blur, change that down, the amount of rays, the resolution of it, the strength of it. It's at 0.75. You can drop that down if it's too heavy, or crank it up if you want it really strong. Hit BPR. And there we go. We got shadows dropped in. There's another place you can do this. If we go back to matte cap gray temporarily, you can also hit BPR, and that'll give you a BPR render. And you know what? Before we do that, let's go back to our strength of our shadow and drop that down just a bit. Move this around. There we go. And now that we've rendered out a BPR, we can now go into our render properties. And underneath the BPR filters, you got a bunch of Photoshop type filters in here. So F1 is selected but not on yet. Do open circle to turn it on. We'll change this to posterize, and we'll change the posterize value like down to 2, and you can see as we kind of step through, it's posterizing this for us. You can change the opacity of it, so you can go back down to 0 and it's nothing, and then you can start dialing in how much posterization you want. So this is kind of a global effect that you can get in ZBrush. And of course, if you want to layer these things, you can turn on F2, turn that on. This is doing a blur, so you can like change the opacity of that blur. You can do sharpen, posterize, a bunch of stuff in here. We can do noise. The noise we can drop. We'll like crank that up. And then you can even do the blend mode. So if you want to do like multiply, it'll multiply the noise. If you want to do screen or difference, it'll do, well, difference isn't going to work that much. You can screen the noise. So you can kind of do a bunch of operations in there. Glad you made it. Thanks for showing up. So you can do it globally in the BPR render filters, or you can do it in a material by material basis with the materials here. So if you like this one, you can back this thing off. And we'll say you are rendered. And oh, we still got filters turned on. Off, off, render. Because every time you BPR render, it's going to grab any filters you have turned on. Texture, grab dock. We can export this. ZBrush female high res, sure, we'll call that ZGrab02. And then we'll go grab our other texture we made and export that as ZGrab01. And if you want to get rid of all the memory hog that is the 2048 that we made, just go ahead and clear your canvas, go out of edit mode. Turn off your texture here. By the way, if you ever have like an 8K texture loaded over here, it's really going to slow down ZBrush, so just turn that off if you're not using it. Go to document, new document. No, we don't need to save changes. That'll make a new document. If you want your new document to fill up this entire space here, go to document, W size, new document, and it'll just fill that up. And now we can now take this into Keyshot. So let's just turn on matte cap gray. We'll go to render, external render a Keyshot, and we'll do kind of the same thing we just did, just with Keyshot. It's got a few options in there. Hit BPR, and then it'll shoot it over to Keyshot. We'll shoot that to the top here, if it loads up. Cool. Oh man, you missed a bunch. We made a wing thing. Oh, ZBrush still sending it over. Wait for it to respond. Still receiving things. Yeah, we basically went into Marvelous Designer and made like a creature wing membrane creator that we used layers for in ZBrush, and then we went and made a pair of pants. Talked about UVing and Z-remeshing stuff from Marvelous Designer. There she is. So here she is. Now if we want to do kind of the same thing, I'm going to go down here to our toon shader, and we have outlines and fills. Let's just do outline. We'll do toon outline, and you can drag it into individual parts here if you want to. I'm just going to do it to our entire mesh. And now we can change our contour angle to pick up more of her details here. And contour width we can kind of play with. Contour quality. We can turn on environmental shadow, so she'll pick up environment shadows. We can change the environment that she's being lit by. I'm going to do a quick high noon. Let's see, environments. Actually, I'm going to go to lighting, and we'll do a product render environment, HDRI editor. You're not going to see this window, but just give me a second. Sun and sky. I'm just going to drop that sun down just a bit. There we go. So you can do sun and sky in Keyshot. I like it in Octane. Octane's got a really good one. Keyshot's a CPU renderer. I did it at a Ryzen event that AMD had. Just kind of demoed that off, so it uses, now I'm not on a Ryzen right now, I wish I was, but I'm using all these cores to kind of just real-time render this. Now it's not that impressive because it's a toon shader, but let's see what's going on with ground illuminations, interior product scene. We got material over here. Oh, shadow multiplier. I'm going to drop this down. There we go. So now you can kind of dial in some shadows on her. So we can kind of scoot this around. And we can also go in here. We can go to environment. Our environment tab, we'll go to like outdoor. We can put her in some dirt. And then that lighting environment will render her out, and then you can hold down control and you can spin that around. If you don't want to see that background, just go in environment here, turn on color, drop that down. And now you have kind of a toon shaded thing that you can now, you can either take a screenshot down here or just render out. If you want to just do regular old ZBrush or Keyshot stuff, just to kind of do a little previs, let's go ahead and undo until we're just back to. The reason I'm doing this is because I don't want to have to break all these material links, which I guess probably wouldn't take that long if I can do it by multiples. Or I can also just pass the model back in from ZBrush. It's not a big deal. There's a file reset. And again, I'm with streaming and CPU usage and a laptop. It's not exactly lighting anything on fire, performance-wise. All right, I'll stop bugging it. Basically, let's go back here. Let's go ahead and kill that. I'm just going to do another quick. We'll throw it back in a Keyshot here. Yeah, they look pretty cool, man. I'm digging those cores for shores because, yeah, if I'm doing anything like Marvelous Designer is really intensive on your CPU. Anything simulation wise, and Keyshot is very CPU intensive. You can also use GPU renders like Redshift. I use Redshift and Octane a lot. And then you can just stack GPUs for days and use those. And they'll really, really crank through some heavy stuff. But if you just want to do like regular old Keyshot, you can go in here to your materials here. We could do metal. We can drop on some nickel polished on here, and then go into your material here. You can just start dropping nickel polished on multiple items in here. You can double click. You can change the roughness or the color really quickly. We'll keep that pretty shiny. There's also tons of stuff. We can go into skin, and I'm not going to do a beautiful Keyshot render here, but you know, obviously she doesn't really have any skin showing. We can show some skin though. Let's go ahead and take this visor, or you know what we can do? Let's go to scene, visor. Let's give her, wake up, where are you at? How come you're not outlining my stuff? Touch, 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 touch. Let's go to beer. Give her some beer goggles. And then in order for those to show up right, you got to go to lighting. You got to do a full simulation so you get like the light coming through and the caustics and, you know, the rays coming through and like hitting her skin and bouncing back out. Now obviously it's going to distort her face quite a bit because it's literally taking that block that I had there and putting beer into it and all the physical properties that beer has. It's recreating right there. So I'll go back to our basic render here, and we'll just put black chrome. Or, I mean, if you wanted to, let's do, and she's also got a lot of layered stuff in here. So this isn't a really great Keyshot demo by any means. It's not really set up for that, but you can do like liquid water, and you can make like these shoulder pads made out of water, and we'll change that lighting back to full. And now it'll start refracting. And now, because it is a full simulation, it's casting a lot, doing a lot of ray bounces and caustics and stuff. It is pretty intensive too. But you can see, now we can see through this water. And let's go ahead and change our environment to something a little bit more. And we'll go back to our environment here You can make it like gemstones. You can make it plastic. Plastic's pretty isn't that bad on performance. We'll do like a hard, shiny red plastic instead. And we'll go back to our basic real quick. So we can do material, hard, shiny red plastic here, and then chrome black here, and then nickel here. So you can just kind of drag and drop all day long. Hold down Control, and you can spin that environment map around. If you want to bring that back, see what it's doing. And if you want to make her look like she's lit inside of a studio, we can go here to our environments. Let's go to Studio. Excuse me. And we'll do like a overhead panels. Now it looks like she's in a car commercial or something. And ZBrush has some cool ones. Put her in Barcelona. Another thing we can do. Oh, you know what? Do I have them? Yes. Okay. So here's another cool thing you do. Let's go to our materials here. Let's act like we're real artists real quick. This is my favorite thing to do, is pretend I'm an artist. So we're going to go to ZBrush, and we're going to drop on, what is this one? Chavant. So let's say we're going to pretend like we actually modeled this thing in clay. So we're going to drop it into ZBrush here. And we're going to drop our environment back to Studio. Let's go back to the startup here. I think that's a pretty good one. And we're going to change our backplate to be like a ZBrush workshop, like a little clay workshop here. So I'm just going to click and drag that in. And if I back this off, now it'll look like we made a little clay sculpture here, and we can go into our environment settings. We can kind of change the brightness a little bit. And you can also hold down Control and change the lighting to kind of match. So the light direction is coming from here and casting a shadow over here. You can also, you know, you kind of want to match up her perspective as well. Let's go ahead and go to lighting, product lighting. You can also, in your camera, do depth of field. You can select a point closest to the camera. So basically, see how this is sharp and then it gets blurry as it goes away? You can set your sharpness focal point, and then your focal distance is what you can change this, so it kind of is sharp here and then it kind of blurs as it goes back. So it'll kind of match. Actually, you probably need to reset that to be like front here. There we go. So that'll kind of set her in the scene a little bit. No, what you would do if you want to bake stuff is you can use ZBrush to bake. I go into this in my on my Gumroad. I go actually on my YouTube channel as well. Let me link you there real quick. The easiest way for me to bake, and this is what I use 99% of the time if I can help it, is this method here. So in this playlist, scroll down until you see number 125 multi-baking and painter from ZBrush. We'll definitely do a little bit of that on this channel, probably not tonight. But what you can do is you can, if you have a low poly model, you're going to want to bake your normal information and do materials for that. And I would do, honestly, I do all of that in Painter now. I used to do it in Dedo. Yeah, XNormal, I use that, and XNormal I have in the reptile creatures stuff too in my Gumroad. I go through a bunch of different baking options. ZBrush, my XNormal, Nald, some others I believe. But basically, you're going to want to bake all your detail information to your low res, create PBR materials, physically based rendering materials, if that's the engine you're going for. And probably, even if you're doing stylized stuff now, it's just a nice way to keep things consistent for any style of rendering you're doing in engine. So yeah, we'll do a little bit more production stuff, but for now, we'll just stay in high-res land for a little bit longer. So anyway, we were going to do some Photoshop stuff. If everybody's cool with that. I need a drink. Soda stream. Water with carbon bubbles in it, I suppose. All right, so we'll get that out of the way and we'll switch Photoshop up. There we go. Everybody see Photoshop and everybody see brush eraser. No brush eraser. Let me change this real quick. There we go. So that's my brush eraser window. If you guys haven't used brush eraser yet, that's another lifesaver. Quadro reference viewer is a good one, and then brush eraser is another good one just to kind of have your brushes organized, because Lord knows Photoshop's brush preset system is not very robust. Anyway, I've got a bunch of different brushes that I can choose from in here, and they're all organized. You can do it by thumbnails, you can do it by stroke preview, you can do it by name, and you can color code the names, and you can put different tabs for different types if you're doing decals or vents, all that good stuff. So we'll go back to base shapes here. No, I want to go back to brushes, and we'll kind of live in here for a little bit. And what else are we going to do? Let's do a weapon real quick, and by real quick I mean probably not that quick because it's been a while, but what we're going to do is I'm going to load up this other program called Brainstormer. I'm going to throw this to the top here, and just really quickly we're going to play around with a little bit of Brainstormer. Move this down. Okay, everybody see that? So basically what Brainstormer is you can click on this horizontal or vertical or box, and it'll brainstorm thumbnails for you. And oh, awesome! And yeah, that GDC talk is still pretty relevant. I keep waiting for all those things I wanted, like automatic game reses and awesome UVs. We're getting closer, but not quite there yet. I still don't have my Star Trek Enterprise, but one day. So we got horizontal, vertical, and box, and you can hit brainstorm, and that'll just kind of brainstorm through them. If you click construct, that'll kind of pull all of these together. And if you turn on rotation, it'll pull them all together and give it random rotation as well. So it's a really quick thumbnail generator. And of course, you can go in here and click individual pieces all you want. And in here, you can actually rotate, scale, and rotate and scale and move. You can do all of that stuff. Usually I have rotation off if I'm doing a weapon, and I'll have it horizontally if I'm doing a weapon. And really, I don't even need it this complicated if I'm doing a weapon. Usually weapons aren't overly complicated like this, so you can do just weapon thumbnails all day long. I'm going to turn off construct, and you can just kind of click through, and you'll see automatically like 10 awesome weapons out of all these. So if you like these, you can actually zoom in and zoom out here. If you like these thumbnails, or if you want to go in here and rotate them or whatever you want to do, or put two of them together here, you can do that if you want to kind of play around with this. You're more than happy to do that. But what I'm going to do is just take these thumbnails and this little out arrow here. I'm going to click that, and I'm just going to save those, and it'll open the folder for you. And another cool thing about this program is if you click on this little gray thing right here, that'll change it to Greeble mode, I guess. I don't know what it's really called, but it looks like Greebles to me. So now you can click brainstorm, and you can kind of see different shapes kind of start popping up. Now these are really overcomplicated, but that's actually not a terrible thing, because you're going to go in and you're going to simplify what you need out of these things. These are just a way to break my brain. If I go into ZBrush and start making a weapon, I can do it, but I sometimes get caught in a rut where I'm just constantly doing the same thing over and over again, or I'm pulling in meshes and I'm not really changing my shape language all that much. So this is a really quick and easy way. Now, I say quick and easy. I'm going to be talking a lot because I'm a blabbermouth, but if you're sitting down and you're really cranking through these, you can do tons of different versions. In fact, I'll open up some that I've done before. They're just really quick and easy to go through and just make. Brainstorm. And before I take credit for this, Google, let me see if I can find it here, brush eraser. And then the thing I'm using now is Brainstormer. And those are both found on, well, brush eraser I'm not sure about. Brainstormer I think was a Gumroad purchase. And So now with these things, if you hit construct, you'll see all the cool construction shapes with this here. Of course, rotation and then thumbnail as well. But we'll go ahead and turn off construct and we'll just kind of brainstorm a couple different things here. These look pretty cool. All these look cool. I can do something with any of these. So we'll go ahead and we'll split these out too, and we'll go and paint on these a little bit. So we've got that. No problemo. And oh, another thing I was going to mention is if you Google basically everything I'm doing tonight, I watched from this guy's video. I forget his name, but he goes through and he does the exact same thing I'm doing. I do a couple things a little bit different, but the same basic idea is there, which is I'm going to close out Brush Eraser, and then I'm just going to drag in our thumbnails that we were talking about, and I'm going to make sure you guys are seeing what's in Photoshop. Good. I'm sorry, that wasn't Brush Eraser, that was Brainstormer. Now, Brush Eraser is this thing right here, which is the, you know, if you want to paint bolts, you can grab your bolt brush, and you can go in and paint some bolts. You got some cables. You can paint on. Now all of these decals and stuff I got off Gumroad. It was like a 3D package. I wish I could remember the name. I'd have to go through my Gumroad emails. But it's basically somebody went in and modeled a bunch of stuff. So you can use these as height maps in ZBrush or kind of interesting shapes in Photoshop, obviously. That kind of stuff. So anyway, we'll go back to our base brushes here, and I'm just going to do like a square brush, like so. One thing to note, when you're doing like this kind of, these pills kind of things, always save your brush preset without any, you guys aren't going to see this. I don't want to make another window for the brush menu, but when you go to the brush menu and you see shape dynamics, make sure that's turned off. It's a lot easier to have just none of your brushes with any shape dynamics turned on, and then if you want them turned on, click this little button up here, which is, hover over it. Always use pressure for size. So you can toggle off, you know, if I want pressure for this brush, I can put that button on. If I don't, by default, just leave it off. It's a lot easier to just toggle that button on and off as you need it than it is to mess around with multiple versions of something, for one with brush size on, one with brush size off, controlled by your pen pressure. Maybe let me go ahead and do a little advertising for him, because I feel bad if I bring it up and then let's see, Gumroad, intro to ZBrush. This is all my stuff. Thanks everybody who purchased my Gumroad stuff. There's a lot of free stuff on Gumroad too. You don't have to buy anything. You can just go in there and check it out. 3D art resources, maybe. I kind of just go through and buy stuff on Gumroad and then never end up using them. Or if I, you know, sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. No, this is ADN Modeler, which when we get into Maya and Booleans, we'll talk a little bit more about him. It would be Alpha Update. Let's see what that has. View product. Is this it? I'll send you guys a link if this is it. Open. Okay. See if this works for you guys. That's where I got them from. And like I said, you can pull them into ZBrush and as Z alphas and plug them in. You can use them in here. I don't get a whole lot of use out of them because, again, I don't do a whole lot of 2D concept art stuff. But, you know, check those out. They might be worth something to you. Anyway, so we got our thing in here. And now I'm going to take my square soft brush, which, again, is just a square brush that kind of does this number. And let's go ahead and hit F. So we can kind of move this thing all the way around, Control plus to kind of zoom in a little bit. And we'll take one of these things and we'll just take it to completion tonight, maybe. Let's take this one, this one's pretty cool. So I'm just gonna hit crop. I'm just gonna crop this thing out. Now, of course, you could paint all of those. In fact, while I got you here, let me see if I have any on my, oh, I do. Okay, so I got a bunch. So these are all a bunch that I did just over time. Oh. I guess I didn't need to open all of them. Let's do window, arrange, float all in windows. Oh, and now when they're all floated in windows, you won't see them. just close them all. I'll just open a couple. How about that? So here we got this one. I'll just bring in a bunch of different types. These kind of pistols here. So basically what the end result's going to be is something like this, where it's just kind of the, you know, if we're doing a pistol shape, we'll start doing some rifle stuff. Oh God, is it still doing it all? Okay, you know what? Screw this. You guys don't even see it when I open. You know, I like OBS. It's pretty cool, but sometimes I wish it was more like Camtasia, where I could just, and I guess there is an option for just capturing an entire quadrant, but there we go. Now you can see it. Now you can see. Awesome. Well, thanks for showing up. Glad it's worth your while. I can't say it'll always be worth your while. There will probably be some really boring stuff I get into, especially if I'm not feeling it, because that could happen very well tonight, where I try and concept something and it's just like garbage. But you know, at least we'll talk about brushes and techniques and stuff, and you might get something out of it too. So here's kind of a little alien one. Here's just a kind of a basic sci-fi assault rifle. Here's just a cool little weird pistol LED thing. A couple different pistol variants. So basically we're going to take this shape and we're going to do something that can be held by a human being. So we're going to need a grip or a stock and a trigger guard and a forward grip, maybe, if we're doing an assault rifle. I haven't decided yet. But regardless of what we're making, it'll be grounded in some sort of reality. It won't be completely like District 9, you know, where you can't really tell what it is. Let's make sure you still, okay. Anyways, so what we're going to do, let me open up. Let me go to my drive here. I wonder if I have just I guess I don't need anything specific. Let's do a rifle. Just like a basic rifle with like a stock or something, and we'll just kind of go from there. So with this, let's go ahead and do image, canvas size, and we'll dock it here, and we'll do a width. We'll kind of just crank up that thing, because I can see this thing getting a little bit longer. There's not a whole lot here. I might have picked a poor one here. So really all we need to do is, let's take this, I'm going to duplicate this, and then let me make sure you guys can see okay. Yeah. And I'm going to flip this horizontally, and I'm just going to do a multiply. And now we've got a little bit more to kind of work with here. So I said, yeah, weapons don't need to be complex, just pick a simple one. And I'm like, well, actually, I need something here. So I'm going to kind of put these here. Actually, we'll do normal. And then I'm going to hit W. We'll go into here. I'll just delete that. That'll work. Okay, that'll give me something to go on. So I'll merge these down. We got brush, so we can start brushing here. And we're just getting our basic shape in. So let's say we're pointing this away, and we're going to need, first thing, a stock, and then a trigger guard, and then a handle in here. So I can just kind of start fudging those shapes in there. I don't have to really pull from these things. If I see anything interesting in here, I'm definitely going to use it. But what I'm going to do instead is we'll just like pull out a handle here. And I guess this could maybe be like an interesting kind of mag out here. We can try that. So we can kind of maybe put a magazine poke in here. Maybe it's further back, or if we want to, we can put it out front. We can certainly throw some sort of buttstock back here. In fact, if we take this, we can just take something from it. We can throw this back here. And actually, let's move this forward just a little bit here. And we'll fill this with, come on. There we go. All right, so we got our buttstock here. This could be some sort of scope, so I can kind of maybe move this, maybe up here. So we got to think about kind of the mechanics of it. Ooh, that's another thing I can bring up. I brought this up in one of my early live streams. I ended up trashing, I think. But let's look at some guns real quick. You guys down for that? I'll launch something real quick. We can check out how things work. As long as I don't have to get anything new from Steam. Where's it at? I don't launch Steam very much. Updating Steam information. Sorry. I guess we can close Marvelous Designer. Let's go ahead and shut that down. Play a game. So this one is basically a 3D representation of a bunch of different types of weapons. And you guys can see that, right? Yes. So now I'm like a real Twitch streamer. I've got video games up. I'm talking on Twitch. I'm like a real pro. I don't know how you guys are seeing that. I assume you guys can. It's showing up in OBS. Okay, so escape from that. So let me in. Continue. Thank you. So you've got this huge map of weapons in here. If you want to see, hold on. Let me desktop audio down and let me go to. I should have opened this up before I started. I don't go in here enough to go to my preferences. What are you doing? All right. Well, I assume you guys don't hear the music. Even if you do, it's okay. So we're going to go to by alphabet. No, let's go view list. And we can kind of just go through here, and they have it all broken up into different categories here. You can go by country, you can go by manufacturer, time period, category. So let's look at some assault rifles here. Let's do the FN SCAR. We'll load that up. And once that's ready, we'll go into operation. All right. So now we have the actual gun in here, and you can go into X-ray, and it'll turn on like X-ray modes. You can kind of see the internal workings, and then you can just click fire down here to fire. And as you're firing, you're seeing what these internal mechanisms do. Let's go ahead and do cutaway. So with cutaway, you can actually slice open the entire side of this weapon, and you can kind of look in here. And when I fire, it goes a little bit fast. So all you need to do is go to slow, and we're going to go slow like 10. And now when we fire, you're going to see the magazine, the little spring pops up, the bullet comes into this little chamber here, and it fires, and then the shell ejects from there. Boink. There you go. So you can kind of see the internal workings. You can also do cutaway, not cutaway, you can do you can hold down Alt, and anything you roll over, you'll see like this is the magazine, this is the pistol grip, this is the right fire selector level, and the magazine release right, and all this other stuff. You're also going to see down here on the left, you can turn on, so here's the little cheek pad, I guess. You can turn the safety on and off. You can do the forward grip. You can screw that on. Actually, let's turn slow down. Okay. You can do change that little handle thing here. You can turn the sights up or down, plop in a laser sight, flashlight, stock adjust here, aim point, rear sight up and down. So you can kind of look through here and you can flip that rear sight up and down. You can fold this thing. And then you can do click away. So click and hide. So if you're like, you know what, I want to know what's behind this receiver here. So you can click that, and now you can kind of see through, and you can see the trigger. So as you kind of click through, you can start disappearing some of this stuff here. Let's go to, let's grab this one. And we'll go to operation. And you can assemble these things. You can, so we've got this thing here. Let's see how this thing fires with cutaway. Oh, this one only has click and hide. So we'll do click and hide. So this has a magazine feed that comes in from the top. So when this thing fires, let's slow that down. That thing pops up. So basically what we're looking at here is, you have some sort of mag that feeds bullets into some sort of system where it pushes the bullet through and the thing fires and then it ejects from somewhere if it's, bullet fed. So anyway, this is a really good resource. And it's not just rifles. Sorry, this music is messing me up. It's not just rifles. There's like there's historical things, bolt action stuff. There's rocket launchers, grenade launchers, old big World War II stuff. So when this thing fires, yeah, so let's do click and hide. You can kind of see how this mechanism works here. So, and we'll slow it down a little bit. So it loads in through here. And then you fire it. Rocks it back. This thing has a little spindle. That thing flips forward, pops the shell out. Cool stuff. This is World of Guns. You can get it on Steam. And that'll just kind of give you cool mechanisms to think about. Or at least like, if you have a magazine here, the bullets feed up this way. And then it fires through here, so it has to have a straight line. Just the basics of weapon design, just the pure basics. You can get as complicated as you want. We'll go ahead and shut that down here. Yeah, so we got our kind of a buttstock going here, and then kind of a sight going here. And then this we can probably just get rid of here. And all of this stuff, you know what, let's flip this on its side here. Let's take this and we'll just rotate this around and we'll stick this here and then we'll kind of fit that in there. Now again, this is looking super complicated, but that's okay. We'll get it figured out. So we'll go through here and we'll kind of paint this stuff back. Now yeah, if this is actually the site and you're going through, you're going to need to see all the way back down. So I'm going to make this bigger and let's get rid of all this stuff. There we go. So now we can start painting in, like possibly a mag could end up down here. And we are at 0, 0. There we go. So we can do this. Now we're also going to need some sort of trigger in here so we can actually, maybe pull out. And I mean, you can get as sci-fi and as fancy as you want to, or you can do old school. You can use Quadro or bring in another layer of an actual gun and just take complete. That's what I did on those old Western guns that I kind of brought in, is just take old Western guns and just overlay them on here temporarily, and then just kind of take the hand placement and the where the triggers and stuff go. So we've got this going here. So we'll go ahead and we'll just push this straight through. And this is kind of a cool thing. Maybe we can try taking this. Plop that over there maybe. We'll see. So yeah, just looking at shapes here, we've got our stock going, and we'll kind of curve this around a little bit. And again, all of this is pretty much probably going to end up being simplified quite a bit here. All of this can just be painted over. If you see any cool shapes, for sure keep them. And this is just a way to kind of let those shapes maybe dictate something interesting you wouldn't have done normally. Go ahead and just put a straight line through here, and then we can, okay, so the magazine comes up here, bullet feeds through here. This can be kind of maybe a support bar. You can kind of chop this out maybe, and then we'll go ahead and just simplify some of these shapes here, and kind of like that shape here. So we can maybe leave some of this, and then these panels we can just start simplifying. So let me look up let me Google rifle, not rifle. And I'm just gonna look. Oh my god, I'm having a hard time tonight. I need to go to bed. And I'm basically just looking at like basic receivers and just kind of maybe some details. Yeah, that's a good one. Google, help me out. Every time I'm streaming and I go to Google Images, it's always like the worst results. Any other time it's fine. Let me do. There we go. Okay. Something a little more modern. Okay. So I know you guys can't see this, but it's basically just a modern assault rifle from something. I don't know what. So, but anyways, I'm just kind of looking at where things are going to end up going as far as like rear sights here-ish. You can have the Picatinny rails along the top here. So if we wanted to add a rail to put stuff, we could put a rail system right through here. And then I'm going to use my dots, space dots, turn that off, and we can just kind of run space dots through here. And then we can just take our square soft that we're using, and we can just kind of trim these down just to kind of get a rail system in there real quick. Now it looks like, you know, these things kind of sit on top of there like so. So yeah, we'll just take this here and we'll simplify some of these panels again. So yeah, it looks like on the back of this receiver, back of the receivers are usually pretty simple. So we'll just kind of paint out. You don't need a big vent or anything. We can carry this shape through here maybe. And we can always go back in and add more detail or remove detail as we go. So we'll kind of paint this in. Now this magazine, if we are going to keep it back here, is going to need some sort of housing. So I'm going to kind of block that in here underneath. And then this is kind of an interesting shape maybe. We can try it. Then we can also start maybe putting in a little bit of shadows here to separate some of these forms a little bit. And this almost looks like a side rail, so I'm actually going to keep that. That could maybe work. And then under here, we can make this a little darker. And I like this side rail. I'd not really like this side rail that much. We'll kind of kill that. And this kind of is working. And so I can take this. If I want to extend this all the way down, I can just copy, paste, transform, and just yank that all the way down there. Let's continue that barrel. And then I can move this thing down to make it look like it's going to go straight out. And then maybe I can, yeah, we'll just put in a little dark thing here. So that'll be where it ejects, and I don't know what this thing does. You know what, maybe this doesn't even go on there. We'll play with that a little bit here. So these kind of shapes here. We'll simplify this a little bit, and we'll put in a panel here. And this little back piece here. Yeah, I think all of this can probably be simplified. We can put like a little, I mean, it kind of looks like these things are kind of hinges. So we can maybe put, let's merge all this down. Maybe another hinge over here. And then we'll kind of bridge those hinges. Save often. How are we doing on questions? Anything? Cool, cool. Yeah, that World of Guns is really, really cool. And if I wasn't being scrutinized by people on Twitch, I would probably be thinking like, yeah, the aliens gun, you know, that's a really cool thing to kind of bring up and use as inspiration and kind of pick shapes from them. Right now I'm looking at just a regular assault rifle, which is also probably not a bad idea, because it'll take your sci-fi and just ground it just a bit. But if you're doing something really grounded, obviously you're going to need to pick and choose a little bit harder. You know, some of these shapes are obviously kind of out there. That's okay. We're just having fun tonight. Now, if we ever do this for real, like if I want to use something for my sci-fi lady I'm doing on the Pixelogic stream, we can do that for sure. And that's probably where I'll start. In fact, we'll also do some robots. I need to make some robots pretty soon. So we'll start with Brainstormer just for kind of thumbnails. And you'll see this thing over here is a little Brutus symmetry thing for Photoshop. It's okay. But when we get into symmetry, it's actually pretty nice to go into ZBrush and just use their their symmetry and their, what's it called? Their radial symmetry and their just regular symmetry. It's pretty robust. So we got some panels here. And let's go ahead and I'm going to darken up some of this stuff here and here, and we'll simplify this just a little bit more. Let's look again what we got on here. So on these rifles here, it seems like they have some stuff that goes, kind of maybe darken this a bit. That's a good question. The more sci-fi I get, the more it becomes more like it's got some LEDs on it, so it fires. You know, my own sense of self-worth that people. But you know, this one does look a little bit more bullet-fed here. I'm thinking about changing the magazine placement. It's kind of weird back there. I mean, it's not weird. There are some back here, but you know what? Just to kind of make a change, let's go ahead and take that off, and let's see if we can steal maybe this here. Let's see how this plays. And we'll put this, you know, now this trigger guard is way forward, so what might help, I'm going to keep this separate for now. I'm going to go ahead and do, let's put in a handle real quick. So here, we're going to need some sort of handle here, so we're going to put this right in here. And then the trigger guard will be right off of here. And then our magazine will be right in front of that. And our magazine here can kind of get plugged right up in here. I guess that's okay. We'll stick that right there. And now we can kind of just brush these together and maybe pull this panel down. And of course the magazine's just going to be popped right out of here. And we'll get a really wide magazine. These be big old bullets. All right. Make that a little darker here. And we'll say that comes out in front. This gets pushed in front. This will have a little thing here. And then we'll put in a little slide thingy in here. Maybe pop out a little button. What else? Okay, so now that everything's kind of blocked in here, now we can go in and start cutting in some panel stuff that we might need, some grip stuff we might need. Trigger. Yeah, I mean, if you fire anything hard enough, it'd probably be pretty deadly. Let's see, so this will come down here. We'll go ahead and make this a little darker. This panel can carry over, like so. Okay, so now what's next? So we got our thing up here. We got our shapes going, panel lines and highlights. We can do with just, let's do a square, let's do a hard round. Let's see how this treats us. So we can go in here and start cutting in. I was holding down Alt, by the way, to make changes to my brush size here. And let's go ahead and turn on a little bit of brush pressure sensitivity. Let's do square hard maybe. I still like using that square brush. Kind of cut some stuff in here. My rifle at? Ooh, this is a cool one. I'm sorry, I'm just kind of flipping through different references here. So this is like a Beretta one here. And these buttstocks are usually pretty plain Jane. So I'm just going to, we'll keep the hinge in there, I suppose. Like it's doing something. And then we'll just take a really dark value and maybe we'll split off. Here. Maybe this will come up here. And we can put in a little bit of an indication of rubber grip. Okay. Let's see if this needs something. So this back here could maybe come down. And this is okay. And by okay, I mean it's passable. I'm not falling in love tonight. My brain is so gone, you guys. It's like I can barely even see right now. Yeah, it's okay. I've been, like I said, I was revamping some of my CGMA courses, so we're doing, I'm kind of updating the ZBrush. It's going to be rapid concept iteration production ZBrush something or other. So I'm kind of going through the intro to ZBrush videos, and I'm re-recording a lot of that stuff to kind of condense it down and kind of focus it into a really tight course for the CGMA folks, and it's going pretty good. Just a lot of recording. You know, I'm at work all day, and then I come home really quick, sneak out and come home and record, and then I hop on streaming here. But this is a little bit more relaxing, although sometimes it can be really nerve-wracking too. Anyway, whatever this thing's supposed to be. Rear folding sight. Does it have rear folding sight? Yeah. Okay, so in this case, we'll steal a little idea from here. So we'll put a little thing here, and maybe a little wheel, and then maybe curve this a little bit. So there's its rear folding sight, and then it's got kind of a scope thing that's really small. Let's embiggen this real quick. And we can kind of give it a little split, maybe. And then a forward sight. These things will usually have, or some sort of A-frame, maybe. And kind of maybe squeeze something on there. Now you probably wouldn't have all of these going at once, but just for our purposes here, we'll just throw something on there real quick. All right, nice and muddy. Good enough. All right, Nightman, thanks for stopping by. We're gonna keep rocking some shapes. Well, actually, what time is it? What are we gonna keep rocking? Okay, it's 10 o'clock. We got another hour. Panel lines, we've kind of done. Highlights, I'm gonna leave alone for now. Lighting direction, so you can do dodge and burn to kind of put in a little bit of lighting here. So you're this area here, we're gonna do the dodge tool, and we'll do midtones. We'll do highlights. So you can kind of go through here. You can kind of put in a little bit of lighting along the tops, obviously, or wherever you think light would fall. It's to kind of sell the roundness of some of these shapes. And again, some of these are really, really rough shapes. I'm not going in and detailing all that stuff. And then we'll go in with our burn tool, and we'll kind of, and of course, we'll get to other like overlays and color dodges and color burns as well. But now we're just going to kind of go in here, and this is, we'll do shadows, we'll do midtones as well. Maybe even highlights. Kind of switch between those as needed to kind of start darkening areas or pushing panels back or pulling some forward. Let's do shadows, and we'll separate this a little bit more. I'll put a big here, and then we'll go back to our square soft brush, square soft. Thank you. And again, that's Brusherator if you want to look that up. It is highly, highly useful. That looks a little unnatural. Let's blend these together. And then maybe good enough. Okay. So then, yeah, we talked. Now you can also go in here. I have a super soft brush, and you can go in here and kind of paint in any glows or any light stuff you do. You can also put on a screen layer, but I think we're okay on that. We can stamp some stuff in. I have these stamp brushes. I don't know where I got them. Like, I've been collecting brushes for so many years. It's ridiculous. I'm going to turn off pressure sensitivity, and I'm going to make a new layer. We're going to call this an overlay layer. And I can kind of go in here and kind of stamp in just some panel cut lines. Now, of course, these are on a separate layer, so I can go through and I can delete what isn't kind of working for me a little bit. So I'm going to go hit E, and then anything that kind of bugs me, kind of back that out, and I can kind of use those as indications of where I might want cut lines. Kind of does some interesting stuff in some of these areas here, not so interesting in others. Let's tighten this up, zoom in a little bit. So this is a rear folding sight here. Okay, there it is. So it'll be kind of like, of course we're only seeing it from the side view here. this, something like this. And kind of use some of these. Let's go ahead and erase. So now that I've zoomed in, I can kind of see it a little bit better. And I'm going to merge that down. And then take cues from some of these. Square, soft, 0. Look at this magazine real quick. Okay, we'll just tighten this up just a little bit. Of course, if you want a photo bash as well, by all means, I should probably just go grab a picture of a magazine and paint it in, as opposed to always sitting here and recreating it, or make a brush for a magazine. But we're keeping it loose, and like I said, I don't really do that this often, so bear with me. Alrighty, so I got this thing now. Let's go ahead, and another thing that the ZBrush guy had on his YouTube video was a gradient overlay. So what I'm going to do, and it worked really well, so we'll do a gradient map here, and we'll double click this, and oh, can you guys even see this, because it's another window? Hold on, of course not. This is kind of important. Let me add another window here. There we go. So this is the thing I'm in right now. So you're going to see as I make changes to this gradient, it's going to do things to my image here. So if we take, for example, this black here, actually, let's cancel that. So if we do this one, you're going to see the dark values are going to be yellow, the midtones are going to go purple to orange, and then the light values are going to go blue. So you can kind of go through here, and you can kind of see, let me see, does this preview? Can I turn that on and off? I think I used to be able to. You can kind of click through here and see what all these things do. This is kind of just a muted sepia tone where it goes from dark to dark brown to light blue to light gray to light blue here. So we can kind of just get kind of a scruffy looking weapon going here. And we'll just go ahead and merge that down. And I guess I can close down my reference. Don't really need to see that anymore. And then we'll add some decals here. So if we go into here, let's go back to these brushes here. I'm going to do another layer, and we'll do another overlay. And this time we'll do, let's grab a really bright orange maybe. An overlay may not work. It might be a little too subtle in here. I guess it'll work okay. So we can kind of start stamping in maybe some of this sci-fi stuff. And you can see how ridiculously nonsensical I am with this stuff. But really, it's just, again, it's breaking my brain out of, because if I just stamp things or use brush eraser or just pump something on there, it would be stuff I wouldn't, if I sat down and thought about it, it would end up being really dull. Forcing this type of thing, you know, forces me out of my usual zone, and then I can kind of pick shapes out of here that are interesting or not, maybe. And I can also go through here, and I can kind of, if this is actually painted on, you can go through the edges here, and you can kind of scrape down like where these panel lines are and kind of scrape up this paint a little bit if this is just painted on stuff. Then we'll do some overlay and color dodge and LEDs. So when we go into LEDs here, we can try some of these pills. So I'm just going to go to a new layer and we can start putting in, let's go to brush here. It's a little big. So you can start peppering in these LEDs like this. So I've got a pill forward slash, I've got a pill vertical, pill horizontal, and a pill backslash. And then if you also want to do like horizontal this way or this way, it's kind of up to you. You can kind of start seeing if there's any place for like maybe a couple LEDs. Let's go ahead and change our color to an orange here. And we'll do, and if we can also go, you won't see this, but you go into your brush settings and change your spacing, and then you can kind of drag out a little closer. That's the other thing too, if you want to just start cutting through like you, let's do that. So I'm going to go to Square Soft, and we'll fill out this rail a little bit more. And in order to cut down the weight on this thing, what we're going to do is do a pill horizontal with the background color, and then we can just kind of cut through, put some big old cuts in there so it just lightens that metal up considerably. Whoops. Get my ZBrush hotkeys in my brain for some reason. That's another thing that I'm transitioning from different packages, like from Marvelous Designer to Maya to Fusion 360 to ZBrush. Oh boy, it does a number on my brain, depending on how much sleep I got. Sometimes it takes me a few minutes to go, okay, wait, how do I, what program am I in? What am I doing? There, that'll work. Clean this up a little bit. Clean this up a little bit, a little raggedy. Not that it's, I mean, it's such a weird, like beat up old sci-fi gun that obviously I can get away with being a little raggedy. Not a big deal. But now we're going to put another layer in here, and we'll call this, we'll grab our super soft, and we'll throw it on a color dodge layer, and we'll kind of just, we can kind of brush in some LED lighting maybe, kind of pop those a little bit. So those are some nice bright shiny LEDs. In fact, I have a lens flare brush here. We can kind of make this big and go pow. You got that J.J. Abrams thing going on, and this is actually pretty cool for just like getting some lighting going, kind of putting some hot stuff on your little shiny bits. We'll go ahead and put a lens flare right down the middle of that because we're cool like that. And then we'll do, let's do super soft on this color dodge, and we'll grab some blues. We can start lightening up some of this. Actually, let's make it a little warmer. Trying to get to where, yeah, because right now it's a little, it's pretty subdued. So you can kind of go in here and start popping it like it is actually getting maybe a sunset on it, a little bit of environment lighting going on. And then we'll also throw on a overlay layer with our square soft maybe. And then you can kind of also grunge it up. I don't really have any good grunge brushes loaded. I need to do that still just to get some grungy stuff going. My phone's going crazy. Messages and messages. Let's see what overlay does with this color. Puke. Gross. Let's go back to color dodge here. So the color dodge is really good at kind of lightening some areas up. Let's go back to that soft brush. We'll do a bluish tint. merge all these down, and I'm going to go back in with my burn tool, and we'll just kind of, whoa, let's do soft round. We'll drop that exposure way down. All right. LEDs, lighting effects, and then we would just block this weapon out. It's good enough. It's kind of, it looks semi-functional. Let's see what I missed here. Yeah, I say go ahead and post links. I mean, I'm talking about it, so I just didn't feel like Googling it. But if it'll let you, I assume Nightbot's not going to be. Actually, is I'm so bad at this. Sorry, guys. I need to be better at Twitch and all the cool little moderator things and all that stuff. I'm so bad at. I'm lucky I even am able to show up and stream for you guys. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, this dude, and he's got all these dancing birds all over his stuff too. But you know, I can give you guys, you can, while you can see Brush Eraser, let me walk you through a little bit of it. It can sometimes be a little bit weird. But basically, it's actually been a while since I've made new brushes. Let's make a new brush. So I'm going to take Square Hard, and I'm going to go into my brush presets here. Actually, you might not be able to see a lot of this because we're okay, so if I have a brush like this, and it does, oops, we'll do hexagon, brush tip shape, we'll grab something crazy. I have a lot of Chinese characters on here as well. I forgot I was doing some weird stuff with that. Okay, so let's say this is my new brush that I made, and of course I want to turn off, always turn off shape dynamics, and if you don't want it to kind of fade out, turn off transfer as well. So this is my new brush, right? So I'm going to go to my brush presets, which you guys can't see, but I'm just going to go to brush, new brush preset, and we're going to call this bolt test. And then in my brush eraser window, I can right click and do add button, and shoot, hold on. I hate having to do this window capture stuff all the time. There you go, you guys can see that. So I can do add a new button, and you can tell it, it's going to be a brush preset, so I'm going to select from my brush preset. It's going to be at the very bottom here. You can narrow it down by name. You can just type in the mask there. We'll grab bolt test and hit select. You can tell it, do I want it to be a text button, where it's just a text button with a label and a color, and you can color it gray or purple or whatever. You can have it previewed as an auto stroke or an auto tip or a custom image that you bring in. I'm just going to do auto tip. The name on the panel, we'll just leave it as bolt test, and we'll hit finish. And then that goes ahead and throws it in here. So if I alt tap here, that'll turn it into like editing mode, and now I can just drag these things around and kind of move them and snap them. You can move them in between tabs here. So we just alt click here, and you can also just right click and go into edit mode, which is just alt click. And now I can kind of move this around. So now that I'm done, I can go back to just being like, okay, I'm going to paint with my square brush. Oh, you know what? I want to use that brush. And I'm good to go. Super useful? I think so. What else are we going to do? All right, so we got a gun concept. I suppose we should save it. We'll throw this on our desktop for now. I know what I'm going to do with this. We'll call it miscellaneous sci-fi gun. Yeah, my brain is mush too. I might call it a little early tonight. How about I go till 10:30? Anybody have any questions about what we've done so far, or any ZBrush 3D stuff in general? Marvelous Designer, ZBrush. What else do I do? I guess Painter, if you want to talk about that. Keyshot. We can do some more Keyshot rendering. Yeah, it's been a long week, man. Let me tell you. And let me do, there we go. Oh yeah, I was gonna draw over this. So if I did want to, I can go back into Photoshop. Yeah, I've done rigging. The last time I did rigging was in college. I was in Ringling 2001 to 2005. Professionally, I don't do any rigging. I have much better people than me get to do the rigging. Let me remove this thing. But so it's been a while. We did, although I use rigs. So when I was on DC Universe Online, we had one skeleton that was for every thing in the game pretty much, and then you could add joints to that. So the character team was in charge of making the models, making the textures, making the materials, binding the meshes to the rig, painting weights, doing the Havoc cloth appending. Tony Reynolds, the guy I worked for, he was really good. He made some really good tools that allowed like four and a half character artists to do like 10,000 characters in that game. So it's a pretty robust system we had. All right, let's do that. I thought today we were kind of, it was a little more laid back than usual. Man, there's been some, especially on the Pixel Art channel, where I'm like, rah, 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 rah. Technique, keep up. But yeah, let's do a little bit more Keyshot rendering. That sounds like fun. So let's grab something worthwhile to throw into Keyshot here. I'm gonna load something from my desktop. Give me a second. Intro sample files. If we take it should look okay. We can also do creature stuff. One of the other live streams that I threw away because I was just practicing is embarrassing. Not the actual work, just my performance as far as like, oh, whoops, I forgot about the camera. Oh, whoops, I forgot about the program. Oh, whoops, I forgot everything. That wasn't overly helpful. So we can throw this in there, and then this will give us a lot of different materials we can kind of play with here. So I'll go ahead and do a quick render, Keyshot, turn off auto merge, and then we'll shoot that over into Keyshot real quick. Good. I mean, anything I do that helps you guys out, awesome. There's a ton of stuff on my YouTube channel, and if you want to download it, there's a ton, and most of it's free on Gumroad. You can just download it there, or on my ZBrush channel, you can just download the videos and watch them at your own leisure. I know some people prefer that. Actually, this might take a while to load in. It's not that heavy of a file, but there's just a lot of pieces. But because there's a lot of pieces, so when you bring things into Keyshot, anything you have merged together, you can split it apart in Keyshot under the geometry editor. But it's kind of a pain to work with. It's usually just easier to make sure everything in Keyshot is set up with different subtools and then bring it in so that you have ultimate flexibility here. And let's see if I got any extraneous programs running I can kill. Guess I'll go ahead and kill Quadro since I can't do a capture window with that, unfortunately. But definitely check that out too. Quadro, Quadro, we linked it earlier. Reference viewer, it's really useful. I live and die by that thing every day. Especially when you're doing pre-visualization, pre-vid stuff and ideation and stuff. You're kind of constantly jumping back and forth between vehicles, weapons, creatures, characters, different parts of the character, gloves, boots, helmets, jackets. You know, if you're constantly having to reload a bunch of reference and stuff. Let's go ahead and just look. Look at. Thank you. Okay, so we got our little character in here. So let's have a little bit of fun with this. Let's go back to our Chrome Black. We'll just start tossing that on there. Now, if I keep tossing Chrome Black on here, it's going to make a new material. I don't want to do that. I want to use the same Chrome Black for a lot of different things. We'll just grab chrome black here, and we'll just start peppering this stuff in. We'll chrome black his face up. So this way, what I'm doing is basically grouping all of these pieces under the same material ID so that I can just change one material and make massive changes to this. And let's also make sure if I go to performance mode, that'll just turn it into a really, really fast renderer. So while I'm streaming and doing a bunch of this stuff, I can kind of quickly hop around. And let's go ahead and grab a nickel. And so we're going to do a little bit of custom. We can do a lot of stuff in here. But let's do a little custom lighting maybe. Let's go into our plastics here. Let's grab a hard, shiny. Let's do red. Oops. Okay, now when I dropped in way too many nickels, I can just go in here and do select parts, and then go to my material library, and then just drag nickel onto there, select parts, and drag nickel onto there, and that'll just kind of consolidate them down. Oops. See how far my brain has gone? There we go. We can also do some emissive on the eyeballs. So you can grab like emissive cool, throw it on there. Let's do emissive warm. And now emissive isn't going to be like an area light, but it is going to kind of light up around in here. Let's go ahead and make this color maybe a little reddish. And that way you can kind of start seeing the reflections of the light kind of spill across those things there. And anything else? Let's go ahead and make that emissive, and we'll use our plastic. We have a rubber. Oh, another thing I can bring up is, let's see, tire. Use that as rubber. So we can do leather. Let's do some leather on that next. We'll do leather black. We'll see how that looks. And there's also some like perforated leather we can try. That'll put holes in your leather. Dark leather here. Kind of a burgundy brown leather. Yeah, let's stick with leather black. So we'll go in here to our materials. Plop, plop, plop. Whoa. I guess that's all leather. That's okay. Tire, we'll do rubber. And you know what? Let's just do hard, shiny plastic on these things here. Why not? Keyshot is completely CPU based, so if you look up here on the CPU usage, you're seeing it's using all 100%. You can drop this down if you want to, if it's really killing the performance on anything else. It does okay. I am using a lot of my CPU, well, a bit of my CPU on streaming as well. If you Google, do some free advertising again here. See if I can find it here. There we go. Shoot, I need AMDs. I'll have to look it up, but I did a Ryzen demo for AMD here in Austin. They were nice enough to let me tag along. And demonstrated Keyshot in there. Let's go ahead and change our lighting back to basic so we can at least get some nice reflections going. These pink things are kind of bumming me out, so I'm going to go to an orange here. And another cool thing we can do with this is let's go ahead and take our environment lighting down, and we'll just bring this brightness all the way down here, like really far, so you can kind of see that emissive kind of glowing in here. And I'm going to go to edit, add geometry. Let's add a sphere. And now that we got this thing, I'm going to go into area, and I'm going to give this an area light and just assign that here. And then we will move this thing, move this part. And you know, I guess we could use a plane so we can kind of have a little direction to it. But now you can actually use custom geometry in here to, let's change this to watt. Kind of blow out. So you can kind of move this light around. In fact, let's go ahead and go to our scene here, and we will delete that. And we'll go ahead and do a edit, add geometry, plane. There we go. Now I can just add a custom area light to here, and we'll kind of aim it at our character and kind of spin this around. Now you could also create these in ZBrush. If you go look at my commander lighting thing, I think, you know what, I don't even know. This might be just a, I'm not positive, this might be a Keyshot 6 Pro thing. You can get 2 versions of Keyshot for ZBrush. You need to buy the bridge so that you can shoot it from ZBrush to Keyshot. But then also, let's go ahead and scale this up. Also, if you already have your own version of Keyshot, you just need to buy the bridge. If you don't have your version of Keyshot, you can buy the ZBrush locked version of Keyshot, which is what I'm using for a couple $100. But this is the Pro version, so honestly I don't really remember what the differences are, but that's also another option here. So now let's go ahead and change that down just a little bit. So you can go in here and add just custom lighting here. So if you want to do like your own key light, your own fill light, your own backlight, you can do that. If you don't want to see it, you can go tell it not to be visible to camera. And on your ground plane, let's go ahead and do edit, add geometry, ground plane in here. And on this ground plane, I'm going to change it from ground, which is basically a shadow catcher, and I'm going to change it to plastic. So we'll also make it really shiny. So now we have a shiny plastic ground. Now you're going to see in the reflection, I like the lighting on the helmet, but I don't like seeing that object in the reflection here. So I'm going to go back to my materials, double click on the area light and say, you know what, don't be visible in reflections either. Wait, I do want to be visible in reflections, but not to this one. I wonder if I can tell this one, because that is definitely useful to kind of stop it from showing up in different areas. But now that I think about it, probably I can't stop it. Front of geometry, visible in reflections, visible in shadows, visible to camera. You can turn that on and off. Yeah, I guess for now we'll just do visible to camera. And we'll go ahead and crank up the wattage. And you can still dial in different environments along with that extra lighting. So if we go back to our environment, so here's the startup environment, we can kind of dial that back in. Or we can change it to, if you want some like outdoorsy reflections, we can change it to this one. If we don't want to see it, of course, we can go back to our color and we can drop that down to black. If we want to do something interesting, like, let's spin this around so we can light from the side here. So we got our key light from our plane, and then we kind of have environment light doing its thing over here. Let's crank that up to 1. You can also do material graph stuff, which you guys may not have a window for. Wait, let's see how much I missed here. Everybody good? Cool, cool. Awesome. Yeah, Keyshot is CPU. You know, I wish I could tell you which one. If it's me, I'll make it rain on hardware. CPUs, GPUs, I'll use Keyshot, I'll use Redshift, I'll use Octane. So when I build my new system, you better believe it's going to have 128 gig of RAM, 3 Titans, Ryzen, all the cores I can get all over the place if I can help it. Now, can I afford all that? We'll see if my wife will let me, but that's the dream anyway. Oh, that's true. Yeah, you can have that all set up too, offline or on serve on your server. You set up a server rack full of CPUs and have a little render farm. You can do the same thing with a bunch of GPUs as well, if you have GPU based renderers that you're taking advantage of, because those things have a lot of hardware in them. Oh, really? Yeah, that must have been why I made planes then. Yeah, so in the Keyshot Pro, that's one of the features, is you can edit geometry pretty heavily here. What was I doing? Oh yeah, so let's do a little gradient to this red. So it's not just red. Let's fade from like red to orange, and we can talk a little bit about the material graph. So what I'm going to do is double click this object here, which is going to select the hard shiny plastic red, and I'm going to click the material graph window. And you guys may or may not actually, oh, I do have a material graph window. Let's see if this shows up. Nope, but I can change it to, oh man. Give me a second, sorry. Material graph was not playing along. So we're going to do another window capture. We're going to call it Keyshot. And then I'm going to go to the material graph here, because I want to talk about the material graph, damn it. And we're going to go window capture. There it is, material graph. So I'm going to move this out of the way so you can see both of these things. So I'm going to move this here. I'm going to move this helmet over here. Okay, so you can see the red plastic here. So what we're going to do, there's a lot of cool stuff you can do with this. In fact, let's go. I'm going to go to my environment lighting, and I'm going to crank this up so we can really start getting some bright red here. So we have our material graph in here. You're going to see, if we double click the material, here's all our material properties. If you right click in here, you can you can bring in different materials, like textures and stuff. If we do, let's say we do a color gradient. So now you have a gradient map, and we want to go from red to orange as heck. And we're going to plug that into our diffuse, and we just tell it diffuse, so you can just plug it in. So now we have it going, you know what, let's make it more obvious than that. Let's double click orange, and we'll make it like yellow. Yeah, yellow to red. So now you can see over here, it's going from yellow on this side to red on this side. So we're going to have to map this a little bit better. So we're going to take the gradient type. If we do spherical, it'll do spherical mapping, so that looks like all of it is, let's do view direction. And this will kind of do a Fresnel. So as I pass my camera around, it'll be red where my camera direction is, and then kind of Fresnel out to yellow. You can base it on your UV maps, but I guess we'll do planar, and then we'll go in here and we'll try and change the angle around. So we'll do, if we crank it over here, we can go left to right, but not really top to bottom. So let's go ahead and do mapping tool, and now we can go in here and we can just kind of rotate this around. So if we want to go like gradient yellow to red, top to bottom, we can do that just with this mapping tool. And you can also, shove that yellow gradient down. Let's do yellow front to red back, and we'll hit OK. And now we can change these things, so you can kind of use this to do that. What else can you do? There's utilities in here. You can do color composites, inverting. It's been a while since I've been in here, but it's super duper cool. You can take an occlusion. So here's an occlusion map. Now if I want to preview this, I can right click it and say preview color, and it's just going to show it on the plastic bits here. But if I zoom in, you can kind of see what this occlusion is doing. So if I crank up the fall off and the radius here, and let's scroll down, let's do inside. So now if I do a fairly tight radius and a tight fall off, I can kind of start just grabbing these edges. So now it looks like the plastic is kind of getting worn edges in here. So I can pass this into, let's see if I can mix these together. Let's do a, I forget what it is. I think it's a color composite. So we have a, okay, yeah, I'm gonna undo this and let's turn off preview color. So I'm gonna go from the color gradient as my source, and then my source alpha. And then with these together, I can preview that. And then my source alpha is at 1, my background alpha. It's been too long. I need to practice this a little bit more. There's different ways to kind of overlay and blend all these things together to kind of get wear on your edges. We can actually do a bump. Still on there. Let's do a texture. Let's do a noise texture. And we'll throw that into the bump. And then we can change the bump height and the bump scale. So we'll crank that bump height up. And now this is a lot of this stuff you can just do through the material thing. But it's also a lot of these utilities and stuff you can only do in the material editor here. You can put labels on stuff and then do a lot of cool stuff through labels. I should have done a tutorial right after I learned everything because it's all gone bye-bye here, but we can kind of do kind of a bumpy plastic here. So if we're cool with that, you can kind of see what's going on there. Anyway, a lot of cool things you can do for Keyshot, but let's go ahead and get rid of that bump there. And the color gradient's fine. I'll go ahead and leave that, so we don't need this anymore. Let me go ahead and remove this. Cool. So we got our little robot guy here, and oh, again, like we if we go into the scene here, if you want to, you can make, let's make a helmet out of beer here. So we're going to go to the very top here, and we're going to play a little bit with caustics here. So this is going to be pretty intensive, but if I go here to lighting and do full simulation, that's going to allow the caustic. So now it's basically going to allow all of these light rays to kind of go in, hit that plastic floor, bounce around, and it's just going to behave like a liquid with refraction and reflections and all that good stuff. Now, because I'm really taxing my CPU here, it's probably not going to work that well. So we'll go back to interior. Let's go back to product here. Let's do glass. And oh, I should have actually done that on a, I can tell you guys about that too. You can do, at the very bottom here, you're going to see scene sets, so you can do different variations. Let's do some of those. Okay, we got our material here. So we got this variation here. He's kind of punk rock. Now let's say we want to do a clay variation that we were talking about earlier. So what I'm going to do is go to scene sets, right click, add a scene set. We'll call this clay render. And under clay render here, make sure it's selected. We're going to go back to our materials here, and we're going to go to ZBrush, clay. We're going to just drop that all on here. And then we're going to get rid of this plane, the lighting plane. We don't really need that anymore on the ground plane as well. And then again, we're going to go into our environment. We'll do the studio startup, and we'll do the back plate, and we'll do a slightly different one. I guess we can do the same one. I'm trying to look for one that doesn't have a little stand in it. Looks like this one will do the job. So now we can kind of place this right in here. Let's get our lighting right. Our environment's kind of blown out here. Let's drop that back to a brightness of 1 and make sure if we hit control, we can kind of spin that light to this side. Let's go ahead and put that rotation back to 0 here. Spin that light this way. So light direction, we'll crank that brightness up just a tad. We'll go to our lighting. We'll do a product render just so it goes pretty fast. And again, these, oh, you can also go in here to image. You can choose a region if you really want to kind of speed it up. Whoops. You can make a really small region and then just kind of see, and it'll kind of just render in this little section down here. But anyway, so now we can go back into our camera and we can say Depth of field, we want to make the closest to the camera sharp, and then blur as you get further away like that. And then we can change our focus distance, like set point here, done. And then, oh wait, that's my focal length. That's 35. Field of view is what I want to change. No, stupid. Depth of field, focus distance. Sorry, my brain is goners. Wait, focus distance is what I want to pick, and then f-stop is what's going to make it blurry. Jeez Louise. So you can make it focus right where we picked, and when we're doing our ZBrush renders and you do that depth capture, you can do a lens blur that does the same effect in Photoshop. That's a little bit much, obviously, but you can kind of just dial that in. So now the back of the head is blurry, kind of like that, and then it's in focus here. It's still a little bit much. We can kind of dial that in and make it look like it's sitting in there. We made it out of clay because we're real artists. Not really, though. I'm probably going to call it a night. It's 10:45. I think we made it. Let me see if I got any questions here. Cool, cool. You could print it out. If I was to do it again, if you watch my, I kind of have a couple of shots of it in here. If you watch my GDC 2015 presentation, there's a couple shots of like an actual lady's head in there, but it's like if I was to do this again, I would build it on top of an actual head, a scan date of a head, and then you could, print it out and make sure it would actually fit your face. Joseph Dress does that on, for Pixelogic a lot. So hey, this isn't really anything. This is just a mech helmet I did a while back to practice hard edge in ZBrush, this is like 6 years old now. But if we go back to scene and we go back to default, here's our default scene back. So we got the plane again, and then we'll just take away the ground plane. So now it's, that kind of product in here. Now the environment's still blowing out though, it looks like. Change the materials a little bit. All that jazz. Alt drag onto parts from the materials. Are you talking about in ZBrush or Keyshot? Yeah, because I've seen. Oh yeah, I forgot about 80 level. Yep, kind of the same thing. I talk about the same stuff all the time. Yeah, in here, I'm not sure what that would do. In ZBrush, let me see. Frog gradient. Oh yeah, I made a frog. I forgot about that. Yeah, I'm not sure. Oh, so you can alt drag on the parts from the material. Something like I can borrow an aspect without disturbing the poly paint. Really? Okay. So if I so from this area here, this material scene, these materials, hold Alt to retain textures. Oh, okay, gotcha. Yep, that makes sense. And Control to retain labels, so that way it doesn't bust it up. That is good to know. And that, okay, so that way it'll assign, so I can maintain, and it'll split it off into its own thing, so it'll make a new group. That's gotcha. Okay, so that made it its own thing. And if I go here, ZBrush yellow, now it just changes the material, but not the rest of the settings here. Oh, interesting. Gotcha. That's good to know. Yeah, I need to do some more. I wanted to do my commander. I wanted to do a game res version of him. If you guys go and see the commander painter thing on my YouTube channel, I was hoping to render him in Keyshot, but it was just too difficult to see playlists. I said playlists. Here we go. This thing. It was a lot easier just to render an array in Painter and then, you know, take that into Octane and stuff than trying to finagle normal smoothing, because I have to go through ZBrush to get into Keyshot because it's locked to my ZBrush. So trying to get low res meshes and UVs and multiple objects through ZBrush is kind of a pain. So I kind of, yeah, we'll get into Substance 2 on this channel when I get something worthwhile to throw in there, or we might just take something I've done already. We can kind of play around with Substance. I like getting in there. But cool. Well, thanks for the tip. This was really fun. I will see you guys I'll see you guys Tuesday if you show up for the Pixelogic live stream I do same time. And then I guess I can close that down. Or next Thursday, I'll be back on this channel. Same old stuff. Yes, or Marmoset. That's another good one. No problem. Thanks for showing up, guys. I'll see you guys next time, and I'll try and break this thing down into segments for my YouTube channel so it's easier to parse through. I know 3 hours is a lot to dig through for one video. Cool. Let me go ahead and shut her down. I'll catch you guys on the flip side.